$1 million wedding collapsed in one sentence. Serena Vale stood before the altar in an ivory gown, surrounded by mafia bosses and politicians, and spoke the words no one expected. I object. Then she played the recording that exposed everything. Her groom's plan to marry her for power, then destroy her. The most feared man in the city watched his empire crumble in real time, and the woman he underestimated walked away untouched. If you want to see how a queen destroys a king without firing a single bullet, stay until the end. Hit like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels.
Boss sad satu pases das.
The cathedral doors opened to reveal Serena Vale, and every head turned. She moved down the aisle like she was walking through water, each step deliberate, her ivory gown trailing behind her across polished marble that reflected candlelight from 100 chandeliers overhead. White roses lined the pews where men satpam in tailored suits sat beside women dripping in diamonds. Politicians, crime lords, business moguls who controlled half the city's infrastructure. They'd all come to witness the wedding of the decade. At the altar stood Lucien Moretti, 6 feet of controlled violence wrapped in an expensive tuxedo, dark eyes that could freeze a room, hands that had signed death warrants and billion-dollar contracts with the same pen, the kind of man who made mayors nervous and rival bosses disappear. He watched Serena approach with an expression that might have been pride or possession. With Lucien, the two emotions looked identical. The string quartet played something classical and forgettable. Serena's father walked beside her, his grip on her arm tight enough to leave marks beneath the lace sleeves. He was sweating despite the air conditioning, his jaw clenched like he was marching toward an execution instead of giving away his daughter. Smile, he whispered through his teeth. Serena didn't. She kept her eyes forward, locked on Lucien, watching the way he stood there like he owned the ground beneath his feet, like he owned her. The cathedral suddenly felt too small, the air too thick, the faces around her blurring into a sea of expensive perfume and cigar smoke. When they reached the altar, her father placed her hand in Lucien's without ceremony. His palm was warm, his fingers closing around hers with familiar confidence. He leaned close enough that only she could hear. "You look perfect," he murmured. Serena felt nothing. The priest began speaking in a voice that echoed off vaulted ceilings, words about unity and devotion and futures built together. Serena had heard the speech during rehearsal 3 days ago. Back then, she'd still been pretending this was real. Now every word felt like broken glass in her throat. She glanced sideways at Lucien. He was watching the crowd, his expression unreadable, one hand resting casually in his pocket, completely at ease, a man who'd never doubted himself in his life. He caught her looking and smiled, the kind of smile that would have melted her 6 months ago. The priest droned on about sacred bonds and eternal promises. Serena's mind drifted to a night 2 weeks earlier, standing outside Lucien's penthouse balcony, rain soaking through her coat while his voice cut through the darkness inside. After the wedding, the Vale network belongs to me. Serena doesn't need to know anything until it's too late. She'd stood there in the rain for 10 minutes afterward, shaking, not from cold, from rage. The priest's voice pulled her back to the present. "If anyone here has objections to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." The cathedral went silent. Serena felt Lucien's hand tighten around hers slightly. A reminder. A warning. His thumb brushed across her knuckles in what might have looked like affection to anyone watching. She raised her hand. "I object." The words came out steady, clear, loud enough to reach the back pews where Lucien's captains sat with their hands inside their jackets. Every eye in the cathedral locked onto her. Lucien's head snapped toward her so fast she heard his neck crack. Confusion flickered across his face. Genuine confusion, maybe the first real emotion she'd seen from him in months. "Serena, I have evidence," she said, cutting him off. She pulled her phone from where it had been hidden in the folds of her gown and held it up. "Evidence that this marriage is a fraud." The priest froze. Guests shifted in their seats. Somewhere in the back, a woman gasped. Lucien's expression shifted from confusion to something darker. His voice dropped to the tone he used when someone was about to die. "Put the phone away." "No." His fingers tightened around her wrist. Not enough to hurt, not yet, but enough that she felt the strength behind it. The threat. "You don't know what you're doing," he said quietly. "I know exactly what I'm doing." Serena turned to the priest, who looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Play the recording. Serena. Lucien's voice had gone cold now, final. Think very carefully about your next move. She met his eyes. Those dark, dangerous eyes that had once made her feel protected, wanted, chosen. I already did, she said, 2 months ago when I started recording your private conversations. The color drained from Lucien's face. Serena pulled her wrist free and handed the phone to the priest. Her hands were steady despite the adrenaline screaming through her veins. The old man took it like it might explode. Press play, she instructed. The priest fumbled with the screen. Then Lucien's voice filled the cathedral through speakers meant for hymns and prayers. I'm marrying Serena for her family connections and financial network. The Veil name opens doors even I can't kick down. Once the marriage secures my expansion into European markets, I'll handle her quietly. No one needs to know she was just a stepping stone. The silence that followed was absolute. Serena watched it spread through the crowd like poison. Shock rippling across expensive faces. Wives gripping their husbands' arms. Lucien's own men exchanging glances that said they were already calculating how this changed the power structure. Another voice came through the speakers, female, young, dripping with amusement. And what about us, after you're married? Nothing changes. You think I'm touching Serena once I have the ring on her finger? She's an investment, not a lover. You're what I actually want. Laughter. His laughter, mixed with hers. Serena felt every eye in the cathedral burning into her. Pity, shock, calculation. She stood perfectly still, her spine straight, her expression carved from ice. Lucien grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. Turn it off, he hissed. Let them hear what you really are, Serena said. The recording continued. 3 more minutes of Lucien discussing her family's assets like she was a stock portfolio. Detailing how he'd isolate her from her father's business network, planning exactly how to make her disappear once she'd served her purpose. An accident, something clean, nothing that would point back to him. When it finally ended, the cathedral remained silent. Then chaos erupted. Voices exploded from every direction. Guests standing, shouting questions, bodyguards moving toward exits. Camera phones appeared despite the no photography rule. Lucien's captains closed ranks around the altar, while rival bosses in the back pews started calculating how to exploit this public disaster. Lucien still had Serena's arm in a death grip. You just signed your death warrant, he said quietly. His face had gone pale beneath his tan, jaw clenched tight enough that muscles jumped in his cheek. Do you understand that? You embarrassed me in front of everyone who matters. There's no coming back from this. Good, Serena said. She twisted her arm free with a sharp jerk that made her shoulder scream. I don't want to come back. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger, 5 carats, flawless, worth more than most people earned in a decade, and pressed it into his palm hard enough that the diamond cut skin. The wedding's over, she said. And so are you. Lucien stared at the ring in his hand like he couldn't process what was happening. The most powerful man in the city, reduced to standing frozen at an altar while his world collapsed around him. Serena, don't. She stepped back. Don't say my name. Don't look at me. Don't send your men after me, because if you do, I have 12 more recordings that will destroy what's left of your empire, and I will release every single one. His eyes went dark, murderous. You think you can threaten me? I just did. Serena's father appeared beside her, flanked by private security she hadn't even known he'd hired. 6 men in suits with guns visible beneath their jackets. Her father's face was gray, his hands shaking, but he positioned himself between her and Lucien. Touch her and I'll burn everything you've built, he said. His voice cracked but held firm. I don't care what it costs me. Lucien looked between them, calculating. His captains had moved closer, hands inside their jackets, waiting for orders. The cathedral had transformed into a powder keg where one wrong move would trigger a massacre. Serena met Lucien's eyes one last time. You wanted to use me for power, she said quietly. Now watch what real power looks like. She turned and walked down the aisle. Every step felt like walking through a minefield. Guests pressed back against the pews to let her pass. Some stared with open mouths. Others looked away like they couldn't bear to watch. Camera phones tracked her movement, capturing everything: the ruined wedding, the public humiliation, the bride who just detonated her own ceremony. Behind her, Lucien's voice cut through the noise. "This isn't over." Serena didn't stop walking. The cathedral doors burst open as she reached them, revealing a wall of reporters and cameras outside. Flashes exploded in her face, microphones thrust forward, questions screamed from every direction. "Miss Vale, did you know about his infidelity? Are you pressing charges? Is the Moretti organization finished?" Serena pushed through them without answering. Her father's security formed a barrier around her, shoving reporters aside as they cleared a path to the waiting car. She climbed into the back seat and the door slammed shut, cutting off the noise. The driver pulled away from the cathedral immediately. Serena sat in silence, watching the building shrink in the rearview mirror. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally crashing through her system. She pressed them against her thighs to keep them still. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. 37 missed calls, 62 text messages, all from numbers she recognized, friends, business associates, distant relatives who'd never cared about her before but suddenly wanted details. One message stood out, from Alina Cross, her oldest friend. "Holy shit, are you okay? Where are you?" Serena typed back, "I'm fine, going dark for a few days. Don't worry, Lucien's going to come after you. Let him try." She turned the phone off and leaned back against the leather seat. Her wedding dress felt like a cage, the corset digging into her ribs with every breath. She wanted to rip it off, burn it, erase every reminder of what she'd almost become. "Where to, Miss Vale?" the driver asked. Good question. She couldn't go home. Lucien knew that address. Couldn't go to her father's house for the same reason. Every property in her name was compromised. Every place Lucien had ever visited was now enemy territory. "The Riverside Hotel," she said finally. "Under the name Sarah Chen, pay cash." The driver nodded without questions. Her father had chosen well. 20 minutes later, she was checking into a suite under a fake name with nothing but her wedding dress and a purse containing 2 encrypted flash drives, $5,000 in cash, and a burner phone Alina had given her last week. The hotel room was generic. Beige walls, generic art, furniture that belonged in a catalog. Serena stood in the center of it, still wearing the dress, and felt the weight of what she'd just done settle over her like a physical thing. She'd humiliated the most dangerous man in the city, in front of everyone who mattered, with evidence he couldn't deny or destroy. Serena walked to the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger, perfectly applied makeup starting to run from stress sweat, hair still pinned in an elaborate updo that had taken 2 hours that morning, a wedding dress that cost $40,000 and would never be worn again. She started pulling out hairpins, dropping them in the sink one by one until her dark hair fell loose around her shoulders. Then she unzipped the dress and let it pool on the floor. Underneath, she wore nothing but white lingerie she'd bought specifically for tonight, for a wedding night that would never happen. She stepped over the dress without looking back. In the shower, she scrubbed until her skin turned red, washing away makeup, perfume, every trace of the person she'd pretended to be for the last 6 months. The water ran black with mascara and the remnants of Lucien Moretti. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a hotel robe with her hair dripping, she felt lighter, cleaner, like she'd shed a skin she'd been trapped inside. Her phone, the real one, not the burner, was ringing when she came out of the bathroom. Unknown number. She let it ring. It stopped, then immediately started again. Same number, persistent. On the 4th call, she answered, "What?" "You made a mistake," Lucien's voice, cold and flat. A very serious mistake. "Did I?" Serena sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. "Because from where I'm sitting, I just escaped the biggest mistake of my life." "You embarrassed me," he said, each word sharp as a knife, in front of everyone. "You think I can let that stand? I think you don't have a choice." Silence on the other end. Then, "Where are you?" "Somewhere you'll never find me." "Serena." His voice shifted slightly, losing some of its edge. "We can fix this. Come back. We'll explain. It was a misunderstanding, that someone edited the recording, that... Stop. We were both under stress from the wedding, and you made a mistake." "Lucien." She cut through his words like a blade. "Listen very carefully. I have 12 more recordings. Conversations with your captains about drug shipments. Discussions with politicians you've bought. Details about offshore accounts and money laundering operations that would interest several federal agencies. The silence stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. "You're bluffing," he said finally. "Try me. Send one person after me, one, and I'll release everything to every news outlet in the city simultaneously. Your empire won't survive the day. You'd destroy yourself too. Your family's connected to my operations. Your father signed contracts with my companies. You'll drag everyone down with me." "I know." Serena lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. "And I'm prepared to do exactly that if you don't leave me alone." More silence. "I loved you," Lucien said quietly. It might have been the most honest thing he'd said in months. "No," Serena replied. "You loved what I could give you. There's a difference." She hung up before he could respond. The phone rang again immediately. She turned it off and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracking. Serena closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd figure out her next move. Tomorrow she'd deal with the fallout and the threats and the reality of what she'd just started. Tomorrow she'd become whoever she needed to be to survive what came next. Tonight, she just needed to breathe. The news broke within an hour. Every major outlet in the city ran some version of the same headline. Moretti wedding scandal. Bride exposes groom's plot. Video footage from guest phones flooded social media. The recording played on loop across news channels. Entertainment reporters called it the betrayal of the decade. Business analysts discussed the potential collapse of Lucien's empire. Serena watched it all from her hotel room on a muted television, eating room service pasta that had gone cold while she worked. The flash drives contained everything she'd collected over 6 months. Every conversation she'd recorded. Every document she'd photographed. Every piece of evidence that proved Lucien Moretti was exactly as dangerous as everyone feared, and exactly as corrupt as they suspected but could never prove. She'd started gathering evidence the night she overheard his confession on the balcony. It had been an accident at first. She'd come to his penthouse to surprise him with dinner, using the key he'd given her 3 months earlier when he'd told her she was the only person he trusted completely. The elevator had opened directly into his living room, and she'd heard voices immediately. His, and a woman's. Serena had frozen by the elevator, hidden in shadow, listening to them talk on the balcony through open doors. The woman's voice was young, light, familiar in a way that made Serena's stomach turn. Then she'd heard her own name. "What about Serena? You really going through with the wedding?" "Have to. Her family's the last piece I need for the European expansion. Once I secure those connections, she becomes a liability." The woman had laughed. Lucien had laughed with her. Serena had stood there, frozen, while they discussed her murder like they were planning a dinner reservation. She'd left before they came back inside. Took the stairs down 40 floors rather than risk the elevator alerting them. Walked home in designer heels that destroyed her feet, mind racing, heartbreaking, and reforming into something harder with every step. By the time she reached her apartment, she'd already made her decision. If Lucien Moretti wanted to play games, she'd show him what real strategy looked like. The next day, she'd bought recording equipment. Professional grade, the kind investigative journalists used. She'd sewn modified buttons onto jackets and dresses, each containing a microphone that could capture conversations 20 feet away. She'd installed hidden cameras and gifts she gave Lucien, a desk clock, a pen holder, a picture frame with a photo of them together. She'd smiled when he kissed her, laughed at his jokes, played the loving fiancé while collecting evidence that would destroy him. Wedding planning became her cover. Every time Lucien dismissed her to take a private call or closed his office door for a business meeting, she recorded everything. His conversations with captains about drug shipments, discussions with politicians about bribes and protection money, confessions about rivals he'd eliminated and bodies that would never be found. 6 months of evidence, all stored on encrypted drives with copies distributed to 3 separate secure locations. The cathedral recording had been just the beginning. A knock at the hotel room door made Serena look up from her laptop. "Room service," a voice called. "I didn't order anything," Serena replied. She reached for the burner phone Alina had given her, already typing a message for emergency extraction. "Delivery from Alina Cross, ma'am." Serena relaxed slightly. She checked the peephole. A hotel employee stood there with a large box balanced in both hands. Young kid, barely 20, looking bored and underpaid. She opened the door with the security chain still attached. Leave it outside. The employee set down the box and left without argument. Serena waited until he'd turned the corner before opening the door fully and dragging the box inside. Inside, she found clothes, jeans, sweaters, practical shoes, a new phone still in its box, $5,000 more in cash, a passport under a different name with her photo, and a handwritten note from Alina, in case you need to disappear. The passport's clean but only good for 30 days. There's an apartment in Brooklyn under the name Sarah Chen, paid for 6 months, keys in the side pocket. Stay safe. Don't be stupid. Love you. Serena sat back on her heels, staring at the supplies. Alina had prepared for this, had known, somehow, that Serena might need an escape route. They'd been friends since college, had built trust over a decade of secrets and 3 a.m. phone calls and being there when it mattered. But this was different. This was life or death. Her burner phone buzzed. Text from Alina. Package arrived? Yes. Thank you. Lucien's men are already looking for you. They've been to your apartment twice in the last hour. Had to pay off your doorman to keep quiet. How much? 10 grand. He'll hold for maybe a day before someone offers more. Serena closed her eyes. So it was already starting. I'm going to the Brooklyn apartment tonight. Good. Don't tell me the address. I don't want to know. Alina, seriously, don't. If they come after me for information, I need to honestly have nothing to give them. The message sat there on the screen, a reminder of exactly how dangerous this situation had become. Be careful, Serena typed. You too. And Serena, what you did today was the bravest thing I've ever seen. Serena turned off the phone before she could respond. Brave wasn't the word she'd use. Necessary, maybe. Survival. The only option left when every other door had closed. She packed quickly, transferring everything into a nondescript backpack Alina had included. Changed into jeans and a hoodie, pulled her hair into a bun, put on sunglasses despite the evening darkness. Transformed herself from Serena Vale, society heiress, into Sarah Chen, nobody. The transformation was easier than it should have been. She left the hotel through a service entrance, bypassing the lobby entirely. The streets were crowded with evening commuters, everyone focused on getting home, no one paying attention to one more woman in a hoodie carrying a backpack. Serena walked 4 blocks before catching a cab, gave the driver an address 3 blocks from the actual Brooklyn apartment, paid cash, kept her head down. The apartment was on the 4th floor of a building that had seen better decades. Narrow hallways that smelled like cooking oil and old carpet. Neighbors playing loud music behind thin walls. The lock stuck when she tried the key, forcing her to jimmy it open. Inside was basic but functional. Studio layout. Kitchen along one wall, bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, a Murphy bed that pulled down from the wall. One window overlooking a fire escape and an alley full of dumpsters. It was perfect. Serena locked the door, engaged the deadbolt, and checked that the window locks worked. Then she sat on the floor with her back against the wall and let herself shake. She'd done it, actually done it. Destroyed Lucien Moretti in front of everyone who mattered, escaped with evidence that could finish him completely, and disappeared before he could retaliate. The shaking turned into something else, laughter maybe, or crying, she couldn't tell which. Both felt appropriate. Her entire life had detonated in one afternoon. Her reputation, her family connections, her place in society, gone. Everything she'd built over 28 years, erased in the time it took to play a recording. But she'd also just freed herself from a man who would have killed her. That had to count for something. Serena pulled out the new phone Alina had sent and powered it on. Set up a new email account under a fake name. Started making a list of everything she needed to do next. Secure the rest of the evidence. Establish new identities. Figure out which law enforcement agencies she could trust with the recordings. Find a way to protect her father from the fallout. Stay alive long enough to see Lucien face consequences for everything he'd done. The list got longer the more she thought about it. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Serena Vale? A woman's voice, professional and cautious. Who's asking? My name is Detective Sarah Morrison. I'm with the Organized Crime Division. I've been investigating Lucien Moretti for 3 years, and I'd very much like to talk to you about what happened today. Serena's mind raced. This could be legitimate, or it could be one of Lucien's people trying to locate her. How did you get this number? Your friend Alina Cross gave it to me. She said you might be willing to talk if you knew you were safe. You spoke to Alina? About an hour ago. She's the one who suggested I reach out. Said you had information that could help build a case. Serena closed her eyes, thinking, Alina wouldn't have given out the number unless she trusted this person. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. I'm listening, she said carefully. Not over the phone. Can we meet somewhere public? Tomorrow, your choice of location. Why should I trust you? Because, Detective Morrison said, I've spent 3 years trying to prove Lucien Moretti is everything you just exposed him to be. And I think you have evidence that could finally put him away. Serena thought about the flash drives, the recordings, everything she'd collected. Even if I did, she said slowly, using it would put a target on my back. The target's already there. You humiliated him in front of his entire organization. He can't let that go. I know. So you have 2 choices, Detective Morrison continued. Hide and hope he never finds you, or help me build a case strong enough that he goes to prison before he gets the chance. Serena stared at the water-stained ceiling of her temporary apartment. If I give you evidence, she said, what happens to me? Witness protection, new identity, new life somewhere far from here. And my father? A pause. We can arrange protection for your family, but I need to see what you have first. Serena made a decision she hoped she wouldn't regret. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Bryant Park, northwest corner by the fountain. Come alone. Agreed. How will I recognize you? I'll recognize you. I'll approach when I'm sure you're alone. She hung up before the detective could respond. Then she sat in the dark apartment surrounded by the ruins of her old life and wondered if she'd just made another terrible mistake or the first smart choice in 6 months. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic and distant sirens and a million lives continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. And somewhere across the city, Lucien Moretti was planning his next move. Serena didn't sleep. She sat on the Murphy bed with her back against the wall, watching shadows move across the ceiling every time a car passed outside. The apartment was too quiet. Every creak in the hallway made her reach for the knife she'd taken from the kitchen drawer. Every footstep on the stairs made her heart slam against her ribs. At 4 a.m, she gave up pretending and made coffee in the tiny kitchen. The machine sputtered and hissed, filling the apartment with a smell that reminded her of Sunday mornings at Lucien's penthouse. She'd loved those mornings once, before she knew what he really was. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Text from an unknown number. You can't hide forever. Serena stared at it, deleted it. The phone buzzed again immediately. I know what you did. I know why. But you need to understand something. This doesn't end the way you think it does. She turned the phone face down and walked to the window. The street below was empty except for a homeless man pushing a shopping cart and a couple stumbling home from a bar. Normal city life. People who had no idea that a few miles away, the most dangerous man in the state was planning how to kill her. The coffee tasted like battery acid. She drank it anyway. At 6 a.m., she started preparing for the meeting with Detective Morrison. Changed into clean clothes, jeans, boots, a dark jacket with pockets deep enough to hide the flash drive she'd carry as insurance. Pulled her hair into a ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing that looked like Serena Vale. She checked the time. 8 hours until the meeting. 8 hours to figure out if she was making a deal with the law or walking into a trap. Eek. Bryant Park was crowded when Serena arrived at 1:30. Lunch crowds filled the tables near the fountain, office workers on break, tourists taking photos, students sprawled on the grass with laptops. She'd chosen the location specifically for the crowd. Harder for Lucien's people to make a move in public, easier for her to disappear if things went wrong. She bought coffee from a cart vendor and found a bench with a clear view of the northwest corner. Sat down. Waited. At exactly 2 p.m., a woman appeared near the fountain. Mid-40s, wearing a blazer and slacks that screamed law enforcement. Dark hair pulled back tight, eyes scanning the crowd with the kind of awareness that came from years of watching for threats. She stood alone, hands in her pockets, looking exactly like someone trying to appear casual while expecting danger. Serena watched for another 10 minutes. No backup visible, no suspicious men lingering nearby, no surveillance vans or unmarked cars that screamed stakeout. Either Detective Morrison had come alone like she'd promised, or she was working with professionals good enough that Serena couldn't spot them. Finally, Serena stood and walked over. "Detective Morrison?" The woman turned, her expression carefully neutral. "Miss Vale?" "Just Serena." She glanced around the park again. "You came alone?" "Like I promised." Morrison studied her with the kind of look cops developed, taking in everything, cataloging details, making assessments. "You look different than your photos." "That's the idea." "Smart." Morrison gestured to a bench away from the main crowd. "Shall we?" They sat with 3 feet between them. Morrison kept her hands visible, a cop's way of showing she wasn't a threat. Serena kept her right hand in her jacket pocket where the flash drive waited. "Thank you for meeting me," Morrison said. "Let's skip the pleasantries. Alina said you've been investigating Lucien for 3 years. Why hasn't he been arrested?" "Because men like Lucien Moretti don't get caught doing their own dirty work. He's got layers of protection, lawyers, shell companies, people willing to take the fall for him. Every time we get close, evidence disappears or witnesses change their stories." Morrison leaned back against the bench. "Or they disappear entirely. How many? People who vanished after cooperating with our investigation?" Morrison's jaw tightened. 4 that we know of. Probably more we don't." Serena felt cold despite the afternoon sun. "And you think I'm stupid enough to put myself on that list?" "I think you already did when you humiliated him at the altar." Morrison's voice was blunt, no sugarcoating. "You're a dead woman walking unless we move fast. The only question is whether you die alone or take him down first." Comforting. "I don't do comfort, I do results." Morrison pulled out her phone and showed Serena a photo. "Recognize him?" Serena's stomach dropped. The photo showed a man slumped in an alley, his throat cut, blood pooling around his body. She recognized the expensive suit, the watch she'd seen him check obsessively during meetings. "Marco Benedetti," she whispered. "Lucien's accountant. Found dead 6 hours after your wedding. Single slash across the throat, professional work. No witnesses, no camera footage, nothing." Morrison swiped to another photo. "This is Angela Torres, a paralegal who worked for one of Lucien's shell companies. She came to us 2 months ago offering to testify about money laundering." The woman in the photo looked young, maybe 30. She was in a morgue drawer. "Car accident," Morrison continued. "Brake lines cut. She died on impact when her car went off the road." Another swipe. "This is David Chen, a lieutenant in Lucien's organization who wanted out. We had him in protective custody." "Had?" "He was poisoned, in a safe house, with armed guards outside the door." Morrison locked eyes with Serena. "So when I say you're in danger, I'm not exaggerating. Lucien doesn't leave loose ends." Serena's hand tightened around the flash drive in her pocket. Marco was at the wedding. He knew the recording was real, which made him a liability. Jesus. Serena stood up, needing to move, unable to sit still while her mind processed what Morrison was showing her. He's cleaning house. Everyone who knows the truth. Everyone who can testify against him, yes. Morrison remained seated, watching her. "Which is why I need to know what you have. If your evidence is good enough, we can move on him before he gets to you." Serena turned back to face her. "And if it's not good enough? Then you run, far and fast. New identity, new life, and pray he never finds you. That's not a plan. It's the only plan that keeps you alive if you don't have what I need." Serena pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it up. 6 months of recordings, Lucien discussing drug shipments, political bribes, contract killings, all of it time-stamped and verified, plus financial documents I photographed from his office, offshore accounts, shell companies, money transfers. Morrison's eyes widened slightly. "You photographed documents from his office?" "He kept them in a safe. I learned the combination." "How?" "I watched him open it enough times." Serena sat back down, exhausted suddenly. "He trusted me completely. Never thought I'd use it against him." Morrison was quiet for a moment, then, "Do you have any idea how dangerous what you did was?" "I do now." "If he'd caught you—" "He didn't." Serena cut her off. "But he will if I don't do something. So here's my question, Detective. Can you actually use this? Or am I handing you evidence that'll get buried like everything else?" Morrison held out her hand. "Let me see what you have." Serena hesitated. The flash drive felt heavy in her palm. Once she handed it over, there was no taking it back. No more leverage. No more control. I need guarantees, she said. I can't promise. Yes, you can. Serena's voice went hard. I give you this. You keep me alive. You put Lucien away. You make sure my father doesn't end up like Marco Benedetti. Your father is already at risk. Lucien knows he was part of your plan. Then protect him. We can try, but not good enough. Serena stood again, the flash drive going back in her pocket. I'm not dying for a maybe. I need actual protection. Witness security, new identities, the whole thing. Morrison stood too, frustration breaking through her professional calm. I can't authorize that without seeing the evidence first. I need to know what we're working with. Then we're done here. Serena, no. She started walking away. I didn't survive Lucien Moretti by trusting people who can't make promises. Wait. Morrison caught up to her. Okay, I can get you protection, but it takes time to arrange. I need at least 48 hours to set everything up properly. I might not have 48 hours. Then we need to move you somewhere safe, right now. Serena stopped walking. Where? There's a federal facility in New Jersey. Secure location, armed guards. No one gets in without clearance. Morrison pulled out her phone. I can have a transport team here in 20 minutes. A federal facility? Serena laughed, no humor in it. You mean a prison? I mean a place where Lucien can't reach you while we process the evidence and build the case. How do I know you're not working for him? The question hung between them. Morrison's expression shifted. Hurt, maybe, or offense. You think I spent 3 years building a case just to hand you over to him? I think everyone has a price. Serena's voice was flat. I've seen enough of Lucien's operation to know he owns cops, judges, federal agents. Why should I trust you're different? Because I'm not. Morrison's voice rose slightly, anger bleeding through. I've turned down 3 bribes, had my car broken into twice. Someone tried to run me off the road last year. I've sacrificed relationships and sleep and any chance at a normal life to bring Lucien Moretti down. So don't you dare stand there and accuse me of being bought. Serena studied her. The anger looked real. The exhaustion in her eyes, the bitterness in her voice, all of it matched someone telling the truth. But Lucien had taught her that everyone was a good liar when they needed to be. Prove it, Serena said. How? Tell me something about your investigation that isn't public knowledge. Something only someone actually working the case would know. Morrison considered this. Then, Lucien has a half-brother. Matteo Russo lives in Naples, runs the European side of the operation. We've been trying to flip him for 18 months because he hates Lucien and wants control of the empire. 3 weeks ago, Matteo agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. Serena felt her breath catch. Lucien never mentioned a brother. He doesn't. Matteo's from his father's second marriage. Technically legitimate, but treated like trash by the family. Lucien made sure Matteo got shipped to Italy to keep him out of the way. Morrison leaned closer. We've got Matteo's testimony placing Lucien at 3 separate contract killings. But without corroborating evidence, it's just one criminal accusing another. Your recordings could be the proof we need. Serena's mind raced. If this was true, if Morrison really had a witness inside Lucien's organization, then maybe there was a chance. Show me proof Matteo's cooperating, she said. I can't. It's classified. Then I can't trust you. For God's sake. Morrison pulled out her phone and made a call. It's Morrison. I need authorization to show a potential witness the Russo file. Yes, I understand protocol. This is a priority situation. Thank you. She hung up and looked at Serena. Stay here. Don't move. Morrison walked 20 feet away and made another call, her voice too low to hear. Serena watched her, calculating escape routes, weighing the risk of staying versus running. 5 minutes later, Morrison's phone buzzed. She checked it, then returned to Serena. Check your email. What? The email you set up for your new identity. Check it. Serena pulled out her phone, suspicious, opened the email app, found a new message from an encrypted address with an attachment. The attachment was a scanned document, official government seal at the top. Cooperation agreement between the United States Department of Justice and Matteo Russo, dated 3 weeks earlier, signed by both parties. Serena stared at it. This could be fake. It's not. How do I know? Morrison took a deep breath. Call this number. She rattled off a phone number. See, it's my supervisor. He'll confirm everything I just told you. But once you make that call, there's no going back. You'll be in the system. You'll have to commit. Serena looked between the phone and Morrison. Every instinct screamed this was a trap. That Morrison was too convenient, too prepared, too perfect. But the alternative was running blind with Lucien hunting her and no protection at all. She made the call. A man answered on the second ring. Deputy Director Hawkins. My name is Serena Vale. I'm standing with Detective Morrison. She says you can verify her investigation into Lucien Moretti. A pause. Then, is this line secure? I don't know. Then listen carefully. Detective Morrison is leading our task force on the Moretti organization. Everything she told you is accurate. We have a witness in protective custody and an open investigation. If you have evidence that supports our case, we can offer you protection in exchange for cooperation. How do I know you're really a deputy director? You don't, but I'm the best chance you have at staying alive. Morrison will explain the next steps. Follow her instructions. He hung up. Serena lowered the phone slowly. Morrison was watching her with an expression that might have been sympathy. Convinced? Not entirely. Serena's voice was hoarse, but convinced enough. Good. Then we need to move. Now. Wait. Serena held up a hand. My father. You said you could protect him. We'll send a team to his location immediately. He's at his office downtown. Private security, but nothing that would stop Lucien's people if they really wanted him. Morrison was already texting someone. Address? Serena gave it to her, then added, He doesn't know about the recordings. He knew I was planning something at the wedding, but not the extent of what I had. Does he have copies of your evidence? No, too dangerous. Smart. Morrison finished texting and looked up. Team's dispatching now. They'll take your father to a secure location and keep him there until we can arrange something more permanent. He'll fight it. He won't want to leave his business. He'll leave when we tell him his daughter's life depends on it. Morrison's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She answered, listened, then swore under her breath. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Lucien's people are at your father's office. 3 cars, at least 8 men. They arrived 5 minutes ago. Serena's blood went cold. Is he still inside? Unknown. Building security won't let them up, but it's only a matter of time before... Morrison's phone rang again. Different number. She answered. Morrison. When? How many casualties? Christ. Okay, send everything you have. She hung up and grabbed Serena's arm. We need to leave. Right now. What happened? There was a shooting at your father's building. 3 dead, including 2 security guards. Your father's missing. The world tilted. Serena heard the words but couldn't process them. Missing? Witnesses saw him being forced into a car. Black SUV, no plates. Morrison was pulling her toward the park exit. Lucien has him? No. Serena jerked her arm free. No, no, no. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to be safe. I know, and I'm sorry, but we need to get you somewhere secure before... I'm not going anywhere until you get my father back. Serena? He has my father! She was shouting now, drawing stares from people nearby. You promised protection, and Lucien took him anyway. Morrison's expression was grim. I didn't promise fast enough. We were too late. Then fix it. I can't fix this by myself. I need you to come with me so we can... No. Serena backed away, mind racing. Lucien took my father to get to me, which means he'll trade. You can't seriously be considering he wants me. I'll give him me in exchange for my father. That's suicide. It's the only option. Serena pulled out her phone, already composing a message to the unknown number that had texted her earlier. You build your case. I'll keep my father alive. By getting yourself killed? Morrison moved to block her path. Think about this. The moment you walk into Lucien's hands, you're dead. He won't trade. He'll kill you both. Maybe. Serena hit send on the message. You have my father. I'll trade myself for him. Name the location. This is insane. This is the only move I have left. Serena's phone buzzed. Reply already. Finally ready to talk. Pier 47, midnight. Come alone. She showed Morrison the message. Morrison read it and shook her head. It's a trap. Obviously. Then why are you walking into it? Because he's my father. Serena's voice cracked. And this is my fault. I dragged him into this when I decided to expose Lucien. I'm not letting him die because I wanted revenge. Your father wouldn't want you to trade your life for his. He doesn't get a vote. They stared at each other. Morrison's phone kept buzzing with incoming calls she wasn't answering. People in the park were starting to notice the confrontation. Finally, Morrison said, "If you're doing this, you're not doing it alone." "I have to go alone. Those were the terms." "Then we plant a wire. Give you backup nearby. Make sure we can extract you if things go wrong. If Lucien finds a wire, he'll kill me on the spot. If you go in with nothing, he'll kill you anyway." Morrison's voice was hard now, commanding. "At least this way we have a chance of pulling you both out." Serena wanted to argue, wanted to tell Morrison to stay out of it, but the detective was right. Walking in completely unprepared was suicide. "Fine," she said, "but your people stay back. I see anyone who isn't supposed to be there, the deal's off." Agreed. Morrison was already making calls, orchestrating something. "We've got 9 hours to prep. Let's make them count." But the federal facility in New Jersey looked exactly like a prison. Gray concrete walls, barbed wire, armed guards at every checkpoint. Serena sat in a windowless room while technicians fitted her with a wire so small it was nearly invisible, embedded in the button of her jacket. "It'll pick up everything within 20 feet, one technician explained. "Even if you whisper." Morrison stood in this corner, coordinating with her team through an earpiece. "Sniper positions on buildings 3 and 7. Tactical team in the warehouse adjacent to pier. No one moves unless we have no choice." "What if Lucien sweeps her for wires?" someone asked. "Then we pull her out immediately." "And her father?" Morrison's expression darkened. "We do everything we can." Serena listened to them planning her potential death with clinical efficiency. Part of her appreciated the professionalism. The rest was terrified. "What happens when I get there?" she asked. Morrison came over. "You go in, establish that your father's alive, then keep Lucien talking as long as possible. The more he says on that wire, the more we have for the case. And if he kills me before I can talk? He won't. Not immediately." Morrison crouched down to eye level. "He'll want to know what you told us, what evidence you have, where it's hidden. He'll keep you alive long enough to extract that information." Comforting. "I'm trying to be realistic." "Realistic is that I'm probably going to die tonight." Morrison didn't disagree. "We'll do everything we can to prevent that." "But you can't guarantee it." "No." Serena looked at the technicians finishing with the wire. "If something goes wrong, if I don't make it out, make sure the recordings get used, make sure Lucien pays for everything." "You'll make it out." "Promise me." Morrison held her gaze. "I promise. Lucien Moretti will face justice for what he's done, one way or another." It wasn't the promise Serena wanted, but it was the one she had. They spent the next 6 hours preparing. Morrison drilled her on how to handle interrogation, how to buy time, how to stay alive long enough for extraction. Serena memorized signals, practiced staying calm, tried not to think about all the ways this could end badly. At 11 p.m., they loaded her into an unmarked car. "You're sure about this?" Morrison asked one final time. "No," Serena admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." The drive to the pier took 40 minutes through mostly empty streets. Serena watched the city pass outside the window. Her city. The place she'd grown up, now transformed into hostile territory where every shadow could hide one of Lucien's men. The car stopped 3 blocks from Pier 47. "This is as close as we can get without being seen," the driver said. Morrison handed Serena a small device. "Panic button. You press it, we come in hard and fast. But once you use it, there's no element of surprise. So only if you have no other choice." Serena pocketed it. "Understood. Remember, keep him talking. The longer you can stretch this out, the better our chances." "Got it?" Morrison grabbed her hand before she could leave the car. "You're brave. Stupid, but brave." Serena almost smiled. "Thanks, I think." She got out of the car and started walking. The pier was dark, lit only by a few scattered streetlights that barely cut through the fog rolling in from the water. Shipping containers stacked like building blocks created a maze of shadows and echoes. The smell of salt water and diesel fuel hung heavy in the air. Serena's footsteps echoed on the concrete as she walked toward the coordinates Lucien had sent. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed to run, to get out before it was too late. But somewhere in this darkness, Lucien had her father, and she wasn't leaving without him. A figure emerged from between two containers. Not Lucien. One of his captains, a man named Victor, who'd always looked at Serena like she was meat. He was holding a gun casually, pointed at the ground, but ready to rise in an instant. "Arms up," he said. "Turn around slowly." Serena complied. Victor patted her down roughly, his hands lingering longer than necessary. She felt him find the panic button and fought not to react. "What's this?" "Phone." He pulled it out, looked at it, then threw it into the water. "Anything else?" "No." His hands continued searching. If he found the wire, this was over. But the technicians had hidden it well. He checked her jacket, her waistband, even ran his hands through her hair, but came up empty. "She's clean!" he called over his shoulder. Another figure appeared, then another, Lucien's men materializing from the shadows like ghosts. 6 total, all armed, all watching her with expressions that said they knew she was about to die. Then Lucien himself stepped into the light. He looked different than he had at the altar. The expensive tux was gone, replaced by dark clothes that blended with the shadows. But his eyes were the same, cold, calculating, focused on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Serena," he said. His voice was almost gentle. "Thank you for coming." "Where's my father?" Lucien gestured. 2 men dragged a figure forward and threw him to the ground. Her father looked terrible. Blood crusted his temple, his expensive suit torn and dirty, hands bound behind his back. But he was alive. When he saw Serena, his eyes went wide. "No," he rasped. "Serena, run!" One of Lucien's men kicked him in the ribs. Her father gasped and curled into himself. "Don't," Serena said sharply. She looked at Lucien. "I'm here. Let him go." "Not quite yet." Lucien walked closer, stopping just a few feet away. "We need to talk first." "About what?" "About the recordings you have? About who you've shared them with? About how we're going to fix the mess you made?" His tone was conversational, like they were discussing dinner plans instead of her imminent murder. "And then, if I'm satisfied with your answers, maybe I let your father live." "Maybe?" "It depends on how cooperative you are." Serena's mind raced. "Keep him talking," Morrison had said. "Buy time." "The recordings are with federal investigators," she said. "Copies stored in multiple secure locations. You can kill me, but you can't stop what's already in motion." Lucien smiled. "I know. Detective Morrison, right? Ambitious, stubborn, thinks she's going to be the one who finally brings me down." Serena's blood went cold. "How do you think I don't have people inside law enforcement?" Lucien laughed. "Serena, I've known about Morrison's task force for 18 months. I know about her witness, her investigation, her plans. I've been feeding her just enough real information to keep her busy while I conduct actual business." "You're lying." "Am I?" He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Detective Morrison, walking into the federal building, time-stamped from this afternoon. "I know she offered you protection. I know you gave her a flash drive. I even know that you're wearing a wire right now, hoping to record something useful." Serena felt the world drop out from under her. Lucien stepped closer, his hand reaching out to touch the button on her jacket. "Did you really think I wouldn't check, that I'd just monologue about my crimes while you recorded everything?" His fingers found the wire, ripped it free. He held it up for her to see, then crushed it under his heel. "Now," he said softly, "let's talk about what happens next." Serena stared at the crushed wire beneath Lucien's shoe and felt everything collapse. The wire was dead. Morrison couldn't hear anything now. The tactical team waiting in the warehouse had no audio, no way to know what was happening, no signal to move in. She was alone on a dark pier with 6 armed men and a father bleeding on concrete. Lucien watched her process this with something close to amusement. "You really thought you were clever," he said. "Playing detective, collecting evidence, making deals with law enforcement." He shook his head. "Serena, I've been playing this game since before you learned to walk. Did you honestly believe you could outmaneuver me?" Serena's throat was dry. "You knew about Morrison. I've known about Morrison since she first started sniffing around my operations. I know she takes her coffee black, drives a Honda Civic that needs new brakes, and has a sister in Portland she visits twice a year. Lucian's smile was cold. I know everything about everyone who poses a threat to me. It's how I stay alive. Then why let her investigate? Because sometimes it's useful to know what law enforcement thinks they know. Morrison's task force has been chasing ghosts for 3 years, while my actual operations expanded into 6 new territories. He pulled out a cigarette, lit it, blew smoke toward the water. She's been a perfect distraction. Her father groaned from the ground. Blood was pooling beneath his head now, dark against the concrete. He needs a hospital, Serena said. He needs you to answer my questions. Lucian gestured, and Victor grabbed her father by the hair, yanking his head back. Her father gasped in pain. Let's start simple. How many copies of the recordings did you make? Go to hell. Victor slammed her father's face into the concrete. The sound made Serena flinch. Her father's nose broke with a wet crack. Wrong answer. Lucien took another drag from his cigarette. Let me explain how this works. Every time you refuse to answer or lie to me, Victor hurts your father. Eventually, your father dies. Then we start on you. So I'll ask again. How many copies? Serena's mind raced. Keep him talking, Morrison had said. But Morrison couldn't hear anymore. The wire was dead. The tactical team was waiting for a signal that would never come. She was on her own. 4 copies, she said. 1 with Morrison, 1 with my friend Alina, 1 in a safety deposit box, 1 encrypted and uploaded to a cloud server. Lucian studied her. Where's the safety deposit box? First National Bank? Midtown branch? Account number? She gave it to him. Lucian typed it into his phone, sent a message. 30 seconds later, his phone buzzed with a reply. He read it and smiled. Interesting, because my contact at First National says that account doesn't exist. Serena's stomach dropped. So either you're lying, Lucian continued, or you're testing me. Either way, I'm disappointed. He nodded to Victor. Victor grabbed her father's hand and bent back his index finger until it snapped. Her father screamed, "Stop!" Serena lurched forward, but 2 of Lucien's men grabbed her arms, holding her back. "Stop, please, I'll tell you the truth." "I'm listening." "There's no safety deposit box, just Morrison and Alina and the cloud backup." "Better." Lucien flicked ash from his cigarette. "Now tell me about this witness, Matteo Russo." The name hit Serena like a physical blow. "How do you know about my half-brother deciding to testify against me?" Lucien laughed. "Because Matteo called me before he called Morrison. We worked out a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind where he pretends to cooperate with the feds while feeding them useless information. In exchange, I don't have his wife and children killed." Lucian's expression went cold. "Matteo's testimony is worthless. He'll recant everything the moment he's asked to go on record. Morrison just doesn't know it yet." Serena felt sick. "She said Matteo hated you." "He does, but he loves his family more. And I'm very good at exploiting what people love." Lucien looked at her father, still bleeding on the ground. "As you're learning right now." Her father was trying to say something. Serena could see his lips moving but couldn't make out the words. "Let me hear him," she said. Lucien nodded. Victor released her father's hair. "Don't tell him anything," her father rasped. Blood bubbled at his lips. "Let him kill me. Just don't." Victor kicked him in the ribs. Her father's words cut off in a wheeze. "Touching," Lucien said, "but ultimately pointless. You're going to tell me everything I want to know, Serena. The only question is how much your father suffers first." Serena looked at Lucien. Really looked at him. At the man she'd once thought she loved. She tried to find something human in those dark eyes, some remnant of the person who'd sent her flowers and held her during thunderstorms, and promised to build a future together. There was nothing there, just calculation, control. The cold machinery of a man who saw people as assets to be used or threats to be eliminated. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly. The question seemed to surprise him. "What?" "You weren't always like this. When we first met, you were different. Dangerous, yes, but there was something real underneath. What killed it?" Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then, nothing killed it. I just stopped pretending. He dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his heel, next to the destroyed wire. The version of me you fell in love with was an act, a tool to get close to your family's network. I played the role you wanted, protective, attentive, magnetic. All of it calculated to make you trust me. You're lying. Am I? He stepped closer. Think about it, Serena. Every conversation we had, every gift I gave you, every promise I made, all of it was designed to manipulate you into exactly this position. Vulnerable, isolated, desperate enough to marry me and hand over everything your family built. Serena felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. I don't believe you. Then you're a fool. Lucien's voice was matter of fact. I've never loved anyone in my life. Love is weakness. Love is what gets men like your father beaten on a pier because their daughters make stupid decisions. Her father made a sound that might have been a laugh. She's stronger than you think. Clearly not. Lucien looked between them. She walked into an obvious trap, trusted a federal agent I've owned for months, believed she could bring me down with some recordings and righteous anger. He shook his head. Strength would have been running, disappearing, starting over somewhere I'd never find her. Instead, she came here to play hero. I came here to save my father. And you failed. Lucien pulled a gun from inside his jacket, which brings us to the end of this conversation. He pointed the gun at her father's head. Wait, Serena said. Her voice came out steady despite the terror flooding her veins. You said you'd let him go if I cooperated. I said maybe I'd let him go. I've decided against it. Lucien, he knows too much. He helped you plan the cathedral disaster. He'll testify against me given the chance. The gun didn't waver. He's a liability. Her father looked up at Serena. Blood covered half his face, but his eyes were clear. I'm proud of you, he said, for trying. Don't, Serena whispered. Don't say goodbye. I love you. Lucien pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed across the water. Her father's body jerked once and went still. Serena screamed. She lunged toward Lucien, but the men holding her arms yanked her back. She fought anyway, kicking and clawing, trying to get free, trying to reach her father, even though she could see he was already gone. Lucien watched her break down with clinical detachment. Stop struggling, he said. You're next. Serena's scream turned into something else. Not grief, not fear. Rage. Pure burning rage that burned through the terror and shock and left only one thought. She was going to kill Lucien Moretti or die trying. Look at me, Lucien ordered. She did, met his eyes with something he must have recognized because his expression shifted slightly. Uncertainty, maybe. Or the first flicker of actual fear. You're already dead, Serena said. Her voice was steady now, cold. You just don't know it yet. Is that a threat? It's a promise. She stopped struggling against the men holding her. Morrison has everything. The recordings, the documents, witness testimony. You can kill me, but you can't stop what's coming. By morning, every news outlet in the country will have proof of what you are. Your empire won't last the week. Lucien studied her. You're bluffing. Am I? Serena smiled. It felt wrong on her face, too sharp, too cold. I gave Morrison a flash drive, yes, but not the only one. I have a friend who works in journalism. If I don't check in with her by midnight, she releases everything to every major network simultaneously. You're lying. Test me. Lucien's jaw tightened. He looked at his watch. It's 11:45, so we have 15 minutes to find out if you're telling the truth. You won't find her in 15 minutes. Maybe not, but I can find Alina Cross in about 30 seconds. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It's me, the journalist friend. Find her. I don't care how. You have 10 minutes. He hung up and looked at Serena. Your move. Serena's heart was pounding, but she kept her expression neutral. The journalist was a bluff. There was no friend with the evidence, no backup plan beyond Morrison's team. But Lucien didn't know that. And as long as he believed there might be another threat, he'd hesitate before killing her. Time. She just needed more time. Even if you find her, Serena said, you can't stop the release. It's automated. Unless I send a specific code by midnight, everything goes live. What's the code? You think I'm stupid enough to tell you? Lucien's expression went dark. I think you're desperate enough to say anything to stay alive for another few minutes. Then shoot me and find out what happens. They stared at each other. Behind Lucien, the other men were getting nervous. Serena could see it in the way they shifted their weight, glanced at each other, fingers tightening on weapons. They didn't like complications, didn't like uncertainty. These were men who followed orders and got paid, not men who enjoyed cleaning up messy situations that might draw federal attention. Lucien's phone rang. He answered without breaking eye contact with Serena. Talk to me. You're sure? And the computers? Everything? Good. He hung up. My people just raided Alina Cross's apartment. No evidence. No computers with your files. Nothing. He smiled. So either you're a better liar than I gave you credit for, or you're stalling. Serena felt her bluff crumbling. Maybe I didn't keep the evidence at her apartment. Where then? Somewhere you'll never find it. Serena. Lucien's patience was wearing thin. I admire the effort, really. But we both know you're out of moves. You came here hoping Morrison's team would rescue you. The wire is dead. No one's coming. You're alone. She's not alone. The voice came from the darkness behind the shipping containers. Everyone turned. Detective Morrison stepped into the light. She wasn't alone. 4 officers in tactical gear flanked her, weapons raised, red laser dots painting targets across Lucien's men. Drop your weapons, Morrison ordered. All of you, now. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then everything exploded into chaos. Lucien's men opened fire. The tactical team returned it. Serena threw herself to the ground as bullets tore through the air above her. The men holding her arms let go to draw their weapons, and she rolled behind a concrete pylon, hands over her head, trying to make herself as small as possible. Gunfire echoed off shipping containers. Someone screamed. Glass shattered. Metal pinged where bullets struck steel. Serena crawled toward her father's body. She didn't know why. He was dead. There was nothing she could do. But some instinct drove her toward him anyway. A hand grabbed her ankle. She kicked backward without looking and felt her boot connect with something solid. The grip released. She scrambled forward, reached her father, pressed her fingers against his neck, hoping desperately for a pulse she knew wasn't there. Nothing. He was gone. Something wet hit her face. Blood, she realized. Not hers. One of Lucien's men had been shot and fallen next to her. He was still alive, gasping, reaching for his gun with shaking fingers. Serena grabbed the gun first. She'd never fired a weapon in her life. Her father had refused to let her learn, said guns were for people who'd given up on civilization. But the weight of it felt right in her hands, solid, final. She looked up. Lucien was running, retreating between shipping containers while his men provided cover. Morrison was shouting orders, coordinating her team, trying to secure the area. Serena stood up. Everything around her moved in slow motion. The gunfire, the shouting, the tactical officers advancing on Lucien's position, all of it faded into background noise. She could see Lucien clearly, 50 feet away, moving fast but not fast enough. She raised the gun, aimed at his back, started to squeeze the trigger. "Serena, don't!" Morrison's voice cut through the haze. Serena turned her head slightly, saw the detective pushing toward her through the chaos. "If you shoot him, you're a murderer," Morrison shouted. "Everything we've built, the case, the evidence, it all falls apart if you kill him in cold blood." Serena's finger tightened on the trigger. "He killed my father." "I know, and he'll pay for it. In court, in front of everyone, with the whole world watching. But only if you don't shoot him now." Lucien had reached a car hidden between containers. He was going to escape. Serena adjusted her aim, not his back, his leg. She fired. The recoil shocked her, sent her stumbling backward. But she saw Lucien go down, clutching his thigh, blood spreading across his expensive pants. 2 tactical officers reached him before he could get up. They had him face down on the concrete, hands being zip-tied behind his back, reading him rights he probably couldn't hear over his own screaming. The gunfire stopped. Silence fell across the pier, broken only by Lucien's cursing and the sound of Morrison calling for medical assistance. Serena lowered the gun. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing through her system. She looked down at her father's body and felt something inside her break completely. She'd won. Lucien was captured. Her evidence would put him away forever. Everything she'd planned had worked, but her father was still dead. Morrison approached carefully. Serena, I need you to put the gun down. Serena looked at the weapon in her hands. It felt heavier now. She set it on the ground and stepped back. I'm sorry, Morrison said quietly. We got here as fast as we could. When the wire died, we knew something was wrong. But by the time we moved into position, it's not your fault. Serena's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. He was already gone before you arrived. Still, I'm sorry. Paramedics were flooding the area now. Some went to Lucien, others to the bodies scattered across the pier. One approached Serena's father, checked for vital signs, then looked at Serena and shook his head. She nodded. She already knew. We need to get you out of here, Morrison said. Crime scene team is arriving. Press won't be far behind. You don't want to be here when the cameras show up. What happens now? Now we process the scene, collect evidence, build the case. Lucien's going to prison for the rest of his life. Morrison hesitated. And you're going into protective custody until the trial. How long? Months, probably. Maybe longer, depending on how many charges we file and how long his lawyers drag things out. Months. Alone. Hidden away while Lucien's organization fell apart and rival factions fought over the pieces. While her father's company collapsed without him. While everything she'd known disappeared. Can I say goodbye? Serena asked. Morrison looked at the paramedics. 5 minutes. Serena walked back to her father's body. The paramedics had covered him with a sheet, but she could still see the outline of his face underneath. She knelt beside him, ignoring the blood soaking into her jeans. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I brought you into this. You tried to warn me about Lucien. You told me he was dangerous. I didn't listen. The sheet didn't move. Her father didn't answer. He was gone, and nothing she said would bring him back. I'll make sure his empire burns, she promised. Everything he built, everyone who helped him, I'll destroy all of it, I swear. A hand touched her shoulder. Morrison. Time to go. Serena stood, looked one last time at the shape beneath the sheet, then turned and walked away. Morrison led her to an unmarked car. The driver started the engine immediately, pulling away from the pier before the press arrived. Serena watched the scene shrink in the rear-view mirror, the lights, the bodies, the place where her father had died. Where are we going? She asked. Safe house. Different one than before. New security team. No one knows the location except me and my supervisor. What about Lucien? He's going to a federal holding facility. Maximum security. No bail. He'll stay there until trial. Serena leaned back against the seat. How did you know the wire was dead? We have monitoring equipment. When it went offline, we knew something was wrong. Started moving in immediately. But you couldn't hear what he was saying about Matteo, about having people inside your investigation. Morrison's expression tightened. I heard enough before the wire died. And what you're describing sounds like psychological warfare. Lucien trying to make you think you were alone, that help wasn't coming. He said Matteo called him before calling you, that the testimony is worthless. Matteo's testimony is solid. We verified everything independently. And the people inside your investigation? Morrison was quiet for a moment. I'll look into it, but Lucien lies when it serves him. Don't believe everything he told you. Serena wanted to believe that. Wanted to think Lucien had been bluffing, trying to break her psychologically before killing her. But something in Morrison's voice made her wonder if the detective was questioning things herself now. The car drove for another 20 minutes before pulling into an underground garage. Morrison led Serena through security checkpoints into a facility that looked like a mid-range hotel. Bland wallpaper, generic furniture, the smell of industrial carpet cleaner. This is your room, Morrison said, unlocking a door. Don't leave without escort, don't use your phone, don't contact anyone from your old life. We'll bring you everything you need. Serena stepped inside. The room was small but functional. Bed, bathroom, desk, television. A prison with better amenities. How long will I be here? Until we're confident Lucien's organization can't reach you. Could be weeks, could be month. And then? Then we prep you for testimony. Go over every detail of what happened. Make sure you can handle cross-examination. Morrison paused in the doorway. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building the case that puts him away forever. She left before Serena could respond. Serena stood alone in the middle of the room. She could still smell gunpowder on her clothes, still feel her father's blood drying on her skin, still see Lucien's face as he pulled the trigger. She walked to the bathroom and turned on the shower, stood under water hot enough to hurt, scrubbing until her skin was raw. But no amount of soap could wash away what had happened. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel with steam billowing around her, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger, hair plastered to her skull, eyes hollow, cheekbones sharp enough to cut. She looked like someone who'd been through a war. Maybe she had been. Serena got dressed in the generic clothes someone had left on the bed. Sweatpants, t-shirt, nothing that belonged to her old life. Then she lay down and stared at the ceiling, waiting for sleep that wouldn't come. Somewhere in the city, Lucien was in a cell, probably getting medical attention for the bullet wound she'd given him, probably already planning his defense, calling his lawyers, working every angle to avoid conviction. And somewhere else, her father's body was in a morgue, alone, cold, waiting for someone to claim him. Serena closed her eyes. She'd wanted revenge, had spent 6 months collecting evidence and planning the perfect exposure, had destroyed Lucien's reputation in front of everyone who mattered. But revenge hadn't saved her father, hadn't protected the one person who'd actually loved her unconditionally. She'd won the battle and lost everything that mattered. Her phone, the burner Morrison hadn't confiscated yet, buzzed on the nightstand. Serena picked it up. Unknown number. She almost deleted it without reading. Then she saw the message. You think this is over? You think putting Lucien in a cell changes anything? His organization runs deeper than you can imagine. People you trust work for him, including the detective who's supposed to protect you. Watch your back, Serena. The real war is just beginning. Serena read it 3 times. Then she got up, locked the bathroom door, and called the only person she thought might tell her the truth. Alina answered on the first ring. Serena? Oh my God, are you okay? The news is saying, is Morrison dirty? Silence. Alina, answer me. I don't know. Maybe. There were always rumors. Alina's voice dropped to a whisper. Why? What happened? Serena told her everything. The pier, her father, Lucien's claims about having people inside the investigation, the text message. When she finished, Alina was quiet for a long time. You need to get out of there, she said finally. Right now. If Morrison is compromised, that safe house is a trap. Where am I supposed to go? Anywhere but there. I'll send you an address. Apartment in Queens, paid cash, untraceable. Get there and we'll figure out the next move. Alina, just trust me, please. The call ended. 30 seconds later, an address appeared on Serena's phone. She stared at it, trying to decide if she was being paranoid or if Lucien had been telling the truth and everyone around her was compromised. Outside her room, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Low voices, someone saying her name. Serena made a decision. She grabbed her jacket, pocketed the burner phone, and went to the window. 4th floor. Fire escape visible outside. She opened the window as quietly as possible and climbed through. The night air hit her face, cold and sharp. Below, the city stretched out in lights and shadows. Somewhere down there was safety, or another trap. She had no way to know which. Behind her, she heard her door open, Morrison's voice calling her name. Serena didn't look back. She climbed down the fire escape, jumped the last 6 feet to the alley below, and started running. Running toward an address she wasn't sure she could trust. Running from people who were supposed to protect her. Running because it was the only move she had left. And somewhere in the darkness, Lucien Moretti sat in a cell and smiled, knowing that even from behind bars, he was still playing the game, still moving pieces, still winning. Serena ran until her lungs burned. 3 blocks from the safe house before she slowed to a walk, forcing herself to blend with the late-night pedestrians stumbling home from bars. Her heart hammered against her ribs hard enough to hurt. Every shadow looked like one of Lucien's men. Every car that passed felt like a threat. She pulled out the burner phone and checked the address Alina had sent. Queens, 40-minute subway ride if the trains were running, longer if she had to walk part of it. Behind her, sirens wailed, getting closer. Serena ducked into a convenience store and grabbed a baseball cap off a rack, a pair of cheap sunglasses, a hoodie that said, "I love NY," in faded letters. She paid cash and changed in the bathroom, stuffing her jacket into the trash. When she emerged, she looked like every other tourist who'd stayed out too late. The subway station was half a block away. She descended into fluorescent light and stale air, swiped a Metro card she'd bought weeks ago under a fake name, and boarded the first train heading east. The car was nearly empty. A homeless man sleeping across 3 seats. 2 kids who couldn't be older than 16 passing a joint between them. A woman in scrubs who looked like she'd just finished a double shift. Serena sat in the corner and kept her head down. Her phone buzzed. Morrison calling. She declined it. It rang again immediately. She turned it off. The train lurched forward. Serena watched her reflection in the dark window across from her, seeing a stranger wearing borrowed clothes and running from people who were supposed to help. Lucien's voice echoed in her memory. Morrison's task force has been chasing ghosts for 3 years. I've known about her investigation for 18 months. I know everything about everyone who poses a threat to me. Was it true? Or was it psychological warfare like Morrison claimed? Serena didn't know anymore. Couldn't trust her own judgment when everything she'd believed had turned out to be a lie. The train stopped at Lexington Avenue. The kids got off, leaving her alone except for the sleeping homeless man and the exhausted nurse. Serena shifted in her seat, hand going to the pocket where she'd stashed the last flash drive, the one Morrison didn't know about, the insurance policy she'd kept hidden even from Alina. If Morrison was dirty, that flash drive was the only leverage Serena had left. If Morrison was clean, Serena had just made the worst decision of her life by running. The train rattled through tunnel darkness, stations passing in bursts of light and noise. Serena counted stops, checking the map on the wall, calculating how many more until Queens. Her phone buzzed even though she'd turned it off. She pulled it out, confused. Different number. Text message from an address that looked like random characters. Smart move leaving the safe house. Morrison just got a call from someone in Lucien's organization. They know where you are, where you're going. You have maybe 20 minutes before they intercept you. Get off at the next stop and head north. There's a car waiting. Black sedan, license plate JKH 4729. Driver will take you somewhere actually safe. Serena stared at the message. Her hands started shaking. This could be real, or it could be Lucien's people trying to redirect her into a trap. The train was slowing for the next station. 30 seconds to decide. She looked at the sleeping homeless man, at the nurse who'd closed her eyes, at the empty seats stretching the length of the car. Made a choice. Serena stayed on the train. It pulled away from the station. She watched through the window as a black sedan with the exact license plate from the text sat idling at the curb, driver's door open, someone standing beside it scanning the crowd. Her stomach dropped. The message had been real. Someone was trying to help her, and she'd just ignored them. Unless it was exactly what Lucien wanted her to think. A test to see if she'd follow instructions from an unknown number. And if she had, the car would have taken her straight to wherever Lucien's people waited. Serena pressed her forehead against the cold window and tried not to scream. She couldn't trust Morrison, couldn't trust mysterious text messages, couldn't even trust Alina completely because anyone could be compromised. Anyone could be feeding information to Lucien. The only person she could trust was herself. And she wasn't sure that was enough. The train reached Queens 40 minutes later. Serena emerged onto streets that looked nothing like Manhattan. Lower buildings, fewer lights, the kind of neighborhood where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions. She found the address Alina had sent. 3rd floor walk-up, in a building that needed new paint and better locks. She climbed the stairs slowly, listening for footsteps behind her, checking over her shoulder every few seconds. The apartment door was unlocked. Serena pushed it open with her foot, staying in the hallway. Alina. No answer. She stepped inside, hand reaching for a weapon she didn't have. The apartment was dark. One room, kitchen along the wall, bathroom door open showing cracked tile and a shower curtain that had seen better decades. Empty. Serena was about to leave when she saw the envelope on the kitchen counter, her name written on it in Alina's handwriting. She opened it, found a key, a new phone still in its packaging, and a handwritten note. Serena. If you're reading this, you made it out. Good. I couldn't risk being here when you arrived in case someone followed you. The phone is clean, prepaid, untraceable. Turn it on and call the only number in the contacts. He'll explain everything. I know you don't trust anyone right now, but you can trust him. I promise. Stay safe. Hey. Serena looked at the new phone, opened the packaging. The battery was already charged. She powered it on. One contact saved. Name? Witness. Her finger hovered over the call button. This could be legitimate help, or it could be the final trap that got her killed. She made the call. It rang twice before someone answered. Male voice, rough, like he'd been smoking for 30 years. Serena Vale? Who are you? Someone who wants Lucien Moretti dead as much as you do. A pause. My name is Matteo Russo, Lucien's half-brother, and I need to tell you something about Detective Morrison that's going to change everything you think you know. Serena's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the floor. You're supposed to be cooperating with the federal investigation. I am, but not the way Morrison thinks. Matteo's voice was careful, controlled. Can we meet? There's a diner on Roosevelt Avenue, Sal's place. I'm there now. Come alone. How do I know you're really Matteo? You don't, but Lucien told you about me on the pier, didn't he? Told you I called him before calling Morrison, that I'm feeding the feds useless information. He did. He was half right. I did call him, but not to make a deal. Matteo's voice went cold. I called to tell him I was going to watch his empire burn, and then I hung up and gave Morrison everything she needed to put him away forever. Then why are you calling me now? Because Morrison doesn't know the whole truth about Lucien's organization, about how deep it goes, about who's really pulling the strings, he paused. And because you have evidence that could fill in the gaps, evidence Morrison can't access because someone in her chain of command is blocking her. Serena closed her eyes. Someone dirty. Someone very dirty. Come to the diner. I'll explain everything, and I'll show you proof that you can verify independently. If this is a trap, if this was a trap, you'd already be dead. Lucien's people knew you'd run from the safe house. They've been tracking you since you got on the subway. Matteo let that sink in. I'm the only reason they haven't grabbed you yet. I've got people running interference, but that won't last long. So come to the diner now, or run blind and hope you get lucky. He hung up. Serena sat on the floor of the empty apartment, trying to process. If Matteo was telling the truth, Lucien's people had been following her this whole time, could grab her whenever they wanted. The only thing keeping her alive was Matteo's protection. If he was lying, she was walking into exactly the kind of trap Lucien would design. Perfect bait, perfect leverage. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Don't be stupid. Don't trust anyone. Get out while you still can. But her father was dead, and getting out meant running forever, looking over her shoulder, never knowing if the next person she met was the one Lucien sent to finish her. Serena stood up, pocketed the new phone, left the apartment. Sal's place was 6 blocks away. She walked fast, keeping to lit streets, watching reflections in storefront windows for anyone following. Saw nothing obvious. But if Lucien's people were professionals, and they were, she wouldn't see them until they wanted to be seen. The diner was exactly what she expected. Vinyl booths, checkerboard floor, the smell of coffee and grease. A handful of customers scattered across tables, all looking like they had nowhere better to be at 1 a.m. Matteo Russo sat alone in the back corner booth. He looked nothing like Lucien. Older, softer around the edges, with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of too many cigarettes and not enough sleep. But there was something in the way he watched the door that reminded Serena of his half-brother, that same predatory awareness. She walked over and slid into the booth across from him. You look like hell, Matteo said. You look like Lucien. We had the same father, different mothers. Mine was the mistress he kept in Naples until she got pregnant and became inconvenient. Matteo pushed a cup of coffee toward her. Drink. You look like you need it. Serena ignored the coffee. Tell me about Morrison. Detective Sarah Morrison joined the Organized Crime Division 8 years ago. Brilliant investigator. Incorruptible, which is exactly why she was assigned to investigate Lucien. Matteo pulled out a tablet and showed her a photo. This is Deputy Director Hawkins, Morrison's supervisor, the man who authorized the task force. Serena recognized him from the phone call Morrison had made her listen to. What about him? He's been on Lucien's payroll for 6 years. The words hung in the air like smoke. You're lying, Serena said. I have bank records, offshore transfers. Hawkins has been getting paid $200,000 a year to make sure Morrison's investigation never actually catches Lucien doing anything prosecutable. Mateo swiped to show financial documents. Every time Morrison got close to real evidence, Hawkins redirected the investigation. Every witness who agreed to testify mysteriously recanted. Every raid happened after Lucien's people had already cleared out. Serena stared at the documents. They looked real. Timestamps, account numbers, transaction histories that lined up too perfectly to be fabricated. Morrison doesn't know, she said quietly. Morrison suspects, but she can't prove it, and without proof, accusing her own supervisor of corruption would end her career. Mateo closed the tablet. That's where you come in. How? The recordings you gave Morrison, she uploaded them to the task force database. Hawkins has access to that database, which means Lucien knows exactly what evidence you have and what Morrison's planning. Serena felt sick. So everything I gave her, compromised. Yes. Mateo leaned forward. But I'm guessing you didn't give Morrison everything. Smart people like you keep insurance. Serena's hand went to her pocket where the last flash drive waited. What makes you think I have anything left? Because you're still alive. If Lucien thought you'd given away every piece of evidence, you'd be dead already. He's keeping you alive because he thinks you have something more, something he needs to find before he kills you. And you want that something. I want to give it to someone who isn't compromised, someone who can actually use it. Mateo pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. Catherine Chen, FBI Special Agent. She's been investigating corruption in law enforcement for 3 years, including Hawkins. Serena picked up the card. Why should I trust her more than Morrison? Because Chen doesn't report to anyone in Morrison's chain of command. She's completely independent, and she's been trying to flip me for 18 months. Mateo smiled grimly. I told her I'd cooperate if she could guarantee Lucien goes to prison and Hawkins goes down with him. She said she needed proof. You have that proof. You're asking me to trust another federal agent. I'm asking you to pick which federal agent is most likely to keep you alive long enough to testify. Mateo's expression hardened. Because here's what's going to happen. Morrison thinks she has you in protective custody. When she realizes you ran, she'll report it to Hawkins. Hawkins will tell Lucien. And Lucien will send everyone he has to grab you before you can give your evidence to someone else. How long do I have? Morrison probably realized you were gone 20 minutes after you climbed out the window. So you've got maybe 4 hours before this whole city becomes a kill zone with you as the target. Serena checked the time. 2:15 a.m., which meant by sunrise she'd either be in federal custody or dead. What do you get out of this? She asked. Revenge. Mateo's voice was flat. Lucien killed my wife. Made it look like an accident. Car went off a bridge. She was 6 months pregnant. His hands clenched on the table. I've spent 5 years building a case against him, collecting evidence, feeding information to Morrison while pretending to cooperate, all of it leading to this moment where I finally have enough to bury him. I'm sorry about your wife. Don't be sorry. Help me finish this. Mateo pulled out his phone and made a call. She's here. How long until you arrive? Good. We'll wait. He hung up and looked at Serena. Agent Chen is 15 minutes out. She's bringing a security team. Once they arrive, you'll be transferred to a different facility, one Hawkins doesn't know about. And Morrison? Chen will handle Morrison. Bring her in on the corruption investigation. Give her a chance to help take down Hawkins. Mateo paused. Morrison's a good cop. She deserves to know the truth. Serena thought about Morrison. The exhaustion in her eyes. The bitterness when she talked about how many investigations had failed. All of it because her own supervisor was sabotaging her work. Lucien told me Morrison was dirty, Serena said. On the pier. Before he killed my father. He said he owned her. He lied. Psychological warfare to make you doubt everyone around you. Classic Lucien. Mateo's expression was grim. My brother is many things, but he's an exceptional liar. Outside the diner, headlights swept across the window. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. 3 more behind it. Mateo stood. That's Chen. Let's go. They walked out together. The SUVs had positioned themselves to block the street in both directions. Armed agents in tactical gear emerged, scanning the area with weapons ready. A woman stepped out of the lead vehicle. Asian, mid-30s, wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than Serena's rent. She walked toward them with the kind of confidence that came from never doubting yourself. Serena Vale, she said. Not a question. Agent Chen, we need to move. Now. Hawkins knows you ran from Morrison's safe house. He's already sent people to intercept you. Chen gestured to the SUV. Get in. We'll talk on the way. Serena climbed into the back seat. Mateo got in beside her. Chen took the front passenger seat. The driver pulled out before the doors were fully closed. Where are we going? Serena asked. Secure facility in New Jersey. Different one than Morrison used. No one outside my team knows the location. Chen twisted in her seat to look at Serena. Mateo says you have evidence that could bring down both Lucien Moretti and Deputy Director Hawkins. Is that accurate? Serena pulled out this flash drive. 6 months of recordings, financial documents, everything I collected while I was engaged to Lucien, including conversations between Lucien and Hawkins discussing how to sabotage Morrison's investigation. Chen's eyes widened slightly. You have recordings of Hawkins? 3 conversations. Lucien called him from his penthouse. I was in the next room with a recording device. They didn't know I was listening. What did they discuss? How to make sure Morrison's raids always came up empty, which witnesses to intimidate, how much to pay certain judges to dismiss evidence. Serena held up the flash drive. It's all here. Chen took it carefully, like it might explode. If this is what you say it is, we can move on Hawkins tonight. Arrest him before he knows we're coming. What about Morrison? I'll bring her in, explain the situation. Give her a chance to help with Hawkins' arrest. Chen looked at Mateo. You're sure she's clean? As sure as I can be. Morrison spent 3 years chasing Lucien. If she knew Hawkins was dirty, she would have gone after him already. The SUV turned onto a highway. Traffic was light this time of night. Serena watched the city lights pass outside the window, feeling exhaustion crash over her. Her father was dead. Lucien was in custody. Hawkins was about to be arrested. After 6 months of planning and a night of violence, it might actually be over. What happens to me after you arrest Hawkins? She asked. Witness protection, Chen said. New identity? New life somewhere Lucien's organization can't reach you. You'll testify at trial, then disappear completely. For how long? Permanently. Chen's voice was matter-of-fact. Lucien has people everywhere. Even with him in prison, his empire will keep running. The only way to guarantee your safety is complete erasure. New name, new face, new history. Serena thought about that. Never seeing Alina again. Never going back to her apartment, her city, her life. Everything she'd known, gone forever. But she was alive. Her father wasn't. And Lucien would pay for what he'd done. It had to be enough. The SUV pulled off the highway into an industrial area. Warehouses and shipping facilities, all dark at this hour. No traffic. No witnesses. Where are we? Serena asked. Shortcut, the driver said. Something in his voice made Serena's skin crawl. She looked at Chen. The agent was checking her phone, not paying attention to where they were going. Looked at Mateo. His expression was carefully neutral. Looked out the window as the SUV turned into a warehouse parking lot and stopped. Why are we stopping? Serena's hand went to the door handle. The driver turned around. It was Victor. Lucien's captain, the man who'd broken her father's fingers on the pier. He smiled. Welcome to the trap. Serena grabbed the door handle, but it wouldn't open. Child locks engaged. Chen wasn't looking at her phone anymore. She was looking at Serena with an expression that was almost apologetic. I'm sorry, Chen said, but Lucien pays better than the FBI. Mateo hadn't moved. Wasn't even surprised. Serena's mind raced, trying to process. You're all working for him. Not all of us, Mateo said quietly. Chen's been on his payroll for 2 years. I didn't know until tonight, but when she called to say she was coming to get you, I realized what was happening. Then why did you bring me here? Because the alternative was letting Lucien's people grab you off the street. At least this way, I'm in the vehicle when it happens. At least I have a chance to get you out. Chen pulled a gun and pointed it at Mateo. You're not getting anyone out. We'll see. Everything happened at once. Mateo lunged for Chen's gun. Chen fired. The bullet hit the dashboard, missing Mateo by inches. Victor threw the SUV into reverse, slamming Serena against the seat as the vehicle shot backward. Serena grabbed the flash drive from where Chen had dropped it and shoved it down her shirt. Outside, the other SUVs were moving to box them in, preventing escape. Mateo got his hands on Chen's gun. They struggled for it in the front seat, both fighting for control. The gun went off again, spiderwebbing the windshield. Victor hit the brakes hard enough to throw everyone forward. Serena's head cracked against the seat in front of her. Stars exploded across her vision. When her sight cleared, Mateo had the gun. He pointed it at Chen. "Open the doors." "You're outnumbered," Chen said. "There are 15 men outside. You shoot me, they kill you both." "Then I guess we're all dying today." Mateo looked back at Serena. "When I open the door, you run. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." "What about you?" "I'll buy you time." He reached over and unlocked the doors manually. "Go." Serena threw the door open and rolled out. Hit the pavement hard, scraped her palms raw, forced herself up, and running before anyone could react. Behind her, gunfire erupted. She didn't look back, ran between warehouses, her breath coming in ragged gasps, legs burning, the flash drive pressed against her skin like a brand. Footsteps pounded behind her, voices shouting, more gunfire. Serena turned a corner and nearly ran into a chain-link fence, 10 feet high, topped with barbed wire. She grabbed it anyway and started climbing, ignoring the pain as the metal cut her hands. Someone grabbed her ankle. She kicked backward without looking, felt her boot connect with flesh. The grip released and she scrambled up and over the fence, dropping to the other side hard enough to make her teeth click together. More warehouses on this side. She ran toward them, looking for cover, looking for anywhere to hide. A bullet sparked off metal next to her head. Serena dove behind a dumpster. Her hands were bleeding, her clothes torn, her entire body screaming for her to stop moving. She forced herself to keep going. Through an alley, across a loading dock, into a warehouse with the door hanging open. Inside was darkness and the smell of motor oil. Serena pressed herself against the wall, trying to control her breathing, trying to listen over the sound of her own heartbeat. Footsteps outside, getting closer. "She came in here," Victor's voice. "Find her." Serena moved deeper into the warehouse. Her eyes were adjusting to the darkness. She could make out shapes now, machinery, boxes stacked on pallets, catwalks overhead. She climbed. The metal stairs groaned under her weight. She froze, waiting to see if anyone heard. When no one came, she continued up to the catwalk. Below, flashlight beams swept through the darkness. 4 men searching methodically, Victor directing them with hand signals. Serena crawled along the catwalk, staying low, moving toward a door she could see at the far end. Maybe an office. Maybe another exit. Anything was better than being trapped here. Her hand pressed against something wet. She looked down. Blood. Fresh. Leading away from her and toward the door. Someone else was up here. Serena followed the blood trail. It led to the office door, which was cracked open slightly. Light spilled through the gap. She pushed it open slowly. Mateo sat slumped against a desk inside, hand pressed to his side where blood seeped between his fingers. He looked up when she entered, his face pale, but his eyes alert. "Told you to run," he rasped. "I did. Then I ran out of places to go." Serena closed the door and locked it. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough," Mateo grimaced. "Chen shot me when I went for her gun, but I got away before her people could finish me." "Can you move?" "Not fast enough to matter." He pulled his hand away from the wound. Blood flowed faster. "Listen to me. The flash drive you have, it's not just evidence against Lucien and Hawkins. It's evidence against 12 other people in law enforcement, judges, prosecutors, FBI agents. Chen is just one piece." "How do you know?" "Because I've been investigating Lucien's corruption network for 5 years. I know every person he's bought, every official on his payroll, and all of it is backed up on a server you can access with the credentials on this." He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket and pressed it into her hand. "Upload your flash drive. Combined with my files, it's enough to bring down the entire network." "Where's the server?" "Cloud-based, accessible from anywhere, just needs the password." Mateo's breathing was getting shallow. "Do it tonight, before Hawkins realizes what's happening, before they can cover their tracks." "What about you?" "I'm done." He slumped further. "But you're not. You finish this. You make sure every single one of them pays for what they did." Below, Victor's voice echoed through the warehouse. "She's up on the catwalks. Someone check that office." Serena looked at the door, looked at Mateo. "There's another way out," Mateo said. "Window behind the desk, leads to the roof. Go." I can't just leave you. Yes, you can. Mateo pulled out the gun he'd taken from Chen. I'll slow them down. You get out and finish what we started. Footsteps on the metal stairs, getting closer. Serena made a decision she'd regret for the rest of her life. She went to the window, opened it, looked back one last time at Mateo. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me, just win. He raised the gun toward the door. Now go. Serena climbed through the window onto the roof as the first bullets tore through the office door. She ran across the roof, jumped to the next building, kept running until the sound of gunfire faded behind her, kept running until she couldn't run anymore. Then she collapsed in an alley 3 blocks away, gasping for air, her hand shaking so badly she could barely hold Mateo's note. The paper was smeared with his blood, but the password was still legible. Serena pulled out her phone, found a coffee shop with Wi-Fi 2 blocks over that stayed open all night, stumbled inside looking like she'd been through a war, which she had, and ordered coffee she didn't drink while she accessed the server Mateo had mentioned. The password worked. Files appeared on her screen. Thousands of them. Bank records, recorded conversations, video surveillance, photos of meetings that should have been secret, a complete map of Lucien Moretti's corruption network stretching through every level of law enforcement in the city. Mateo had spent 5 years building this case, and now it was hers. Serena uploaded her flash drive, watched as her evidence merged with Mateo's files, creating a complete picture of everything Lucien had done, everyone he'd bought, every crime he'd committed. Then she composed an email. 2. Every major news outlet in the country, every honest prosecutor she could identify from Mateo's files, the FBI's Internal Affairs Division, the Department of Justice. Subject line, the Moretti corruption files. Body. Everything you need to know is in the attached documents. Lucien Moretti has bought judges, prosecutors, and federal agents. He's operated with impunity for years because the people meant to stop him work for him. This ends now. She attached every file from the server. Her finger hovered over the send button. Once she did this, there was no taking it back. Every person Lucien had bought would be exposed. Every dirty cop and corrupt official would face consequences. The entire system would explode. And she'd be the one who lit the match. Serena thought about her father, about Mateo bleeding out in a warehouse office, about Morrison working for 3 years on a case her own supervisor had sabotaged, about every person Lucien had destroyed. She pressed send. The email went out to 400 addresses simultaneously. Serena closed the laptop and walked out of the coffee shop. The sun was rising over Queens, morning light painting the sky orange and pink, the city waking up to headlines that would change everything. Somewhere, Lucien Moretti sat in a federal holding cell, probably thinking he'd won. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. Serena's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. This is Detective Morrison. The voice was tight, controlled. I just received your email, along with about 300 other people, apparently. I know. Do you have any idea what you just did? Yes. Serena's voice was steady. I just destroyed everyone who helped Lucien Moretti, including your supervisor. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? Somewhere safe. Serena, listen to me. What you sent, it's going to cause chaos. Half the people you just exposed will try to run. The other half will come after you to keep you from testifying. You need protection, real protection. I'm done trusting federal agents. I understand why you'd feel that way, but I'm not dirty, and I can prove it. Morrison's voice softened slightly. I've been working this case for 3 years. Hawkins sabotaged me at every turn, and I didn't even know it. What you just sent me? It explains everything, every failed raid, every witness who disappeared, all of it. What happens now? Now I arrest Hawkins and every other person on Lucien's payroll, and then we build a case so airtight that none of them ever see freedom again. Morrison paused. But I need you alive to testify, please. Let me help you. Serena thought about Mateo, about Chen turning out to be dirty, about how everyone she'd trusted had either betrayed her or died. How do I know you're not lying? She asked. You don't, but I'm the best option you have. And I'm asking you to take one more leap of faith, one more chance to do this the right way. The sun was fully up now. People were starting to appear on the streets. Normal people going to normal jobs, completely unaware that the city was about to explode. There's a diner, Serena said finally. Sal's place on Roosevelt Avenue. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Come alone. If I see anyone else, I disappear and you never find me. Agreed. Serena hung up. She walked back to the diner where this whole night had started, ordered coffee, and sat in the same booth where Matteo had shown her the truth about Hawkins, where he'd given her the keys to destroying Lucien's entire network. 15 minutes later, Morrison walked in alone. She looked exhausted, older than she had on the pier, like she'd aged a decade in the hours since Serena had escaped the safe house. She slid into the booth across from Serena. "Thank you for calling me," Morrison said. "Don't thank me yet." Serena pushed her coffee cup away. "I need answers first. Real ones. No lies. No half-truths. Everything." "Ask?" "Did you know Hawkins was dirty?" Morrison's jaw tightened. "I suspected, but I couldn't prove it. Every time I got close to something real, the investigation got redirected, witnesses disappeared, evidence vanished. I started to think I was paranoid." She looked at Serena. "What you sent me? Matteo's files. They prove I wasn't wrong. Hawkins has been sabotaging me from the beginning. What about Agent Chen? I didn't know about her, but Matteo's files show she's been on Lucien's payroll for 2 years, along with 6 other agents I've worked with." Morrison's voice was bitter. "My entire task force was compromised, and I didn't see it." "Matteo's dead," Serena said quietly. "Chen's people killed him. He died buying me time to get away." Morrison closed her eyes. "I'm sorry. He was a good man. He was the only honest person in this whole mess." "Not the only one." Morrison opened her eyes again. "I'm going to make this right. Every person who helped Lucien Moretti is going down. I promise you that." "Promises don't mean much anymore." "Then let me show you." Morrison pulled out her phone and showed Serena a news alert. "Hawkins was arrested 20 minutes ago. FBI Internal Affairs took him into custody based on the evidence you sent. He's being charged with corruption, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy." Serena stared at the headline. "Deputy Director arrested in corruption scandal." It was real. Actually happening. "What about the others?" she asked. "Raids are happening right now. 12 arrests so far. More coming." Morrison's expression was hard. "By tomorrow, Lucien's entire corruption network will be in federal custody." "And Lucien?" "Still in a holding cell, but now we have enough evidence to charge him with everything. Murder, racketeering, corruption, witness tampering. He's never seen freedom again." Serena felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief exactly, but something close. "I want to see him," she said. Morrison frowned. "That's not a good idea." "I don't care. I want to look him in the eye and tell him he lost." "Serena, I earned this." Serena's voice was steel. "After everything he did, everything he took from me, I earned the right to watch him realize his empire is gone." Morrison studied her, then nodded slowly. "I'll arrange it. But you're going in with guards, and you're leaving the moment I say so." "Fine." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the city continued waking up. Traffic building, people rushing to work. Life going on like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Lucien Moretti's empire was collapsing in real time. And Serena Vale, the woman he'd tried to use and discard, was the one who'd brought it all down. Morrison's phone rang. She answered, listened, then swore quietly. "What?" Serena asked. "Lucien's lawyers are already moving. They're claiming the evidence was obtained illegally, that you violated his privacy by recording him without consent. They're trying to get everything thrown out." "Can they do that?" "They can try, but with Hawkins and the others in custody, we have enough to make the charges stick even without your recordings." Morrison's expression was grim. "It'll be messy, but we'll win." "When can I see him?" Morrison checked the time. "They're transferring him to a more secure facility this afternoon. You can see him before the transfer. 3 p.m. That gives us 6 hours to prep you." "Prep me for what?" "For facing the man who killed your father and tried to kill you. For staying calm when every instinct will be screaming to attack him. For saying what you need to say without giving his lawyers ammunition." Serena thought about it. About standing face to face with Lucien one final time. About looking into those cold eyes and telling him exactly what she thought of him. "I'll be ready," she said. Morrison nodded. Then let's get you somewhere secure until then, somewhere his people can't reach you before the visit. They left the diner together. Morning light was warm on Serena's face as they walked to Morrison's car. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. The war wasn't over yet. Lucien still had lawyers, still had loyal people who might try one last desperate move. But Serena had won the battle that mattered, and in 6 hours, she'd make sure Lucien knew it. The federal holding facility looked like something designed to make hope die. Concrete walls the color of old snow. Fluorescent lights that turned everyone's skin gray. The smell of industrial cleaner trying to mask something worse underneath. Serena walked through metal detectors and security checkpoints while guards patted her down for the third time, their hands impersonal and thorough. Morrison walked beside her, silent except for the occasional instruction. Keep your answers short. Don't let him provoke you. Remember, everything's being recorded. Serena nodded without speaking. Her throat felt tight. They reached the visitation room, not the kind with glass partitions and phones. This was a private room with a metal table bolted to the floor and 2 chairs facing each other. Security cameras in all 4 corners. A guard stationed outside the reinforced door. You have 15 minutes, Morrison said. If at any point you want to leave, just stand up and the guard will escort you out. I won't need to leave. Still, the option's there. Morrison put a hand on Serena's shoulder. He's going to try to get inside your head. That's what he does. Don't let him. He can't hurt me anymore? Morrison looked like she wanted to argue but didn't. I'll be watching from the observation room. Just remember, you already won. This is just you telling him that. She left before Serena could respond. Serena sat in one of the metal chairs. It was cold through her jeans. She folded her hands on the table and waited. 5 minutes passed, long enough that she wondered if Lucien had refused to come. If he'd decided avoiding this conversation was smarter than facing her. Then the door opened. Lucien Moretti walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit that should have made him look diminished, defeated. But somehow he still carried himself like he owned the room. Head high, shoulders back, that same predatory awareness in his eyes. The guard uncuffed one hand and secured it to a metal ring on the table, then stepped back against the wall, hand resting on his weapon. Lucien sat down slowly. His leg was bandaged where Serena had shot him on the pier. He moved carefully, like it still hurt. Good. They looked at each other across the table, neither speaking. The silence stretched until it became a weapon both of them were wielding. Finally, Lucien smiled. You look terrible. You look like a prisoner. Temporary situation. His voice was casual, like they were discussing weather. My lawyers are already working on getting the charges dismissed. Evidence obtained through illegal recordings. Witness testimony from criminals trying to save themselves. It'll fall apart. Will it? It always does. Lucien leaned back as far as the handcuff allowed. You think you're the first person to try bringing me down? I've survived 3 federal investigations, 2 assassination attempts, a war with the Russian mob that should have killed me. I'm still here, still standing. You're sitting in a federal holding cell. For now. His smile didn't waver. Give it a month. I'll be back in my penthouse while you're hiding in witness protection, living under a fake name, looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. Serena felt the words land but refused to let them show on her face. I didn't come here to argue about your legal prospects. Then why did you come? To tell you that you lost. She kept her voice steady. Your empire is collapsing. Hawkins is in custody. Chen, Victor, and 11 other people on your payroll have been arrested. Your offshore accounts are frozen. Your properties are being seized. By the time the trials are over, you'll have nothing left. Lucien's smile finally faded. You think money matters to me? Power isn't about bank accounts. It's about fear, respect, the knowledge that when I give an order, people obey or they die. He leaned forward, the handcuff rattling. That doesn't disappear because you expose some corruption. No, but it does disappear when you spend the rest of your life in a cell. There are people in this facility who work for me. People in every prison in the state. You think concrete and bars will stop me from running my operations? I think you're lying to yourself. Serena leaned forward to match him. I think you know it's over and you're desperate to convince me otherwise. Because if I believe you're finished, then it's true. Lucien's jaw tightened. The first real crack in his composure. You killed my father, Serena continued. Her voice was quiet now, but each word landed like a hammer. You put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger while I watched. And you did it because you thought it would break me, thought I'd fall apart and beg and give you whatever you wanted. You did give me what I wanted. You walked right into my trap. And then I walked out of it, with evidence that's destroying everything you built. Serena's hands were shaking, but she kept them flat on the table. My father's dead. Mateo's dead. Good people died because of you. And you're sitting here acting like you still have power. I do have power. No. Serena shook her head. You have lawyers. There's a difference. Lucien stared at her. Really looked at her for what felt like the first time since he'd walked in. His expression shifted, something calculating happening behind his eyes. You've changed, he said finally. You killed the person I used to be. Maybe, or maybe I just revealed who you always were. He tilted his head slightly. You were so soft when we met, so naive, playing at being a socialite while your father's money protected you from reality. I saw potential in you, someone who could be molded into something useful. You saw a target. Both. Lucien's smile returned, but it was colder now. You had connections I needed, a family network that opened doors. But you also had something else, something harder underneath all that innocence. I could see it even then. What? Rage. The word hung between them. You were so angry at your life, at the expectations, at being treated like an accessory to your father's empire. You wanted to matter, to be seen as more than just a name and a pretty face. Serena felt her stomach clench. That's not true, isn't it? Lucien leaned forward again. Why do you think you fell for me so quickly? I gave you what you wanted, treated you like an equal, made you feel powerful, dangerous, like you could stand beside a king instead of being kept as decoration. You lied to me. About my intentions, yes, but not about what I saw in you. His voice dropped lower. You're capable of terrible things, Serena. You proved it when you spent 6 months lying to my face while collecting evidence. When you destroyed me in front of everyone who mattered. When you shot me on that pier without hesitation. You deserved all of it. Maybe, but that doesn't change what you became to achieve it. Lucien's eyes were locked on hers. You think you're the hero of this story, the brave victim who fought back against the monster. But look at what you did. The people you used, the lies you told, the way you manipulated everyone around you to get what you wanted. I was trying to survive. So was I. His voice was almost gentle now. That's what you don't understand. I'm not evil. I'm not a monster. I'm just someone who learned that the only person you can trust is yourself. That mercy is weakness, that love gets you killed. My father loved me, Serena said quietly, and you killed him for it. Your father was a liability. He helped you humiliate me. In my world, that has consequences. In any world, that's murder. In my world, murder is a business decision. Lucien's expression didn't change. You want me to feel remorse? Guilt? I don't. Your father knew the risks when he stood between us. He made his choice. Serena felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. I came here hoping to find some trace of the man I thought I loved, some proof that what we had was real, even if it was brief. And there's nothing. You're empty. Just calculation and control, and this pathetic need to convince yourself you're something more than a murderer in an expensive suit. Lucien's smile vanished completely. Careful. Or what? You'll have me killed? Serena laughed, no humor in it. From a federal holding cell? With your entire network in custody? You have no power here, Lucien. You're just a man in handcuffs who's about to spend the rest of his life in a cage. You think this is over. His voice was dangerous now, the tone he used before someone died. You think because you exposed some corruption and got me arrested that you've won. You're wrong. I still have people, still have resources you can't imagine, and all it takes is one mistake. One moment where your guard drops. One person who gets close enough. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Lucien leaned as close as the handcuff allowed. You put me in here. You destroyed my empire. You killed everything I built. So now I'm going to make it my life's mission to destroy you. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year, but eventually you'll make a mistake. And when you do, I'll be there. Serena stood up. No, you won't, because you'll be in a cell, and I'll be free, living a life you can't touch. We'll see. We will. Serena looked down at him, at the man who'd killed her father and tried to kill her, who'd manipulated and lied and hurt everyone who'd ever trusted him. I hope you enjoy prison. I hear it's where people like you finally understand what it feels like to be powerless. She walked to the door. The guard opened it for her. Serena. She stopped but didn't turn around. I did love you, Lucien said quietly. For about 3 weeks, before I remembered that love is just another form of weakness. And I'm never weak. Serena looked back at him one last time. You're weak right now. You just can't see it. She walked out. The door closed behind her with a heavy metallic clang that sounded like finality. Morrison was waiting in the hallway. How do you feel? Empty, Serena said. Then corrected herself. No, light, like I just put down something heavy I'd been carrying too long. Good. Morrison started walking, leading her back through the security checkpoints. The lawyers are already filing motions. This is going to be a long fight, months of court appearances, testimony, cross-examination designed to make you look unreliable. I can handle it. I know you can, but it'll be brutal. Lucien's defense team will dig into every aspect of your life. Paint you as an opportunist who seduced him for money, then turned on him when you didn't get what you wanted. Let them try. Serena's voice was hard. I have 6 months of recordings that prove exactly what he is. No jury in the world will side with him after hearing those. They reached the exit. Sunlight spilled through the doors, warm and bright. Serena stepped outside and tilted her face toward it, feeling heat on her skin for the first time in what felt like days. What happens now? She asked. Now we prep your testimony. Go over every detail. Make sure you're ready for whatever they throw at you. Morrison pulled out her phone and checked messages. The arraignment is in 3 days. That's when formal charges will be read. After that, we start building the case for trial. How long until trial? 6 months minimum. Maybe longer depending on how many delays Lucien's lawyers file. 6 months. Half a year of living in safe houses and preparing testimony and reliving the worst moments of her life over and over again. And after the trial? Serena asked. Witness protection, new identity, fresh start somewhere Lucien's organization can't find you. Morrison's expression softened. It's not ideal, but it's the only way to guarantee your safety. Serena thought about that, about becoming someone new, leaving behind every person she'd ever known, starting over in a strange city with a fake name and a manufactured history. It should have felt like a prison sentence. Instead, it felt like freedom. When do I leave? She asked. After you testify. Once the trial's over and Lucien's convicted, we'll move you immediately. Morrison hesitated. There's someone who wants to see you before that happens, if you're willing. Who? Alina Cross. She's been asking to visit since the news broke about Hawkins. I told her I'd ask. Serena's throat tightened. Alina, her oldest friend, the one person who'd helped her without expecting anything in return. Yes, she said. I want to see her. Morrison made a call. 20 minutes later, they were at a different safe house, this one in Brooklyn, closer to where Alina lived. The apartment was nicer than the previous ones, actual furniture instead of institutional basics, windows that weren't barred. Alina arrived 30 minutes after that. She burst through the door like a hurricane, all nervous energy and relief, grabbed Serena in a hug that knocked the breath out of both of them. You're alive, Alina said into Serena's shoulder. You're actually alive. Barely. Serena hugged her back, harder than she meant to. But yeah, still here. They separated. Alina looked her over with an expression that was half concern, half amazement. You look like you went through a war. I did. I know. I've been watching the news. It's insane. Hawkins arrested, Chen exposed, Lucien's entire network collapsing. Alina shook her head. You actually did it. You brought down a mob empire. We did it. You helped me. The apartment, the supplies, the journalist contact I pretended to have. That was nothing compared to what you did. Alina's expression turned serious. Your father's funeral is tomorrow. I've been handling the arrangements, small service, just family and close friends. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to attend. Serena felt something crack inside her chest. The funeral. She hadn't even thought about it, had been so focused on staying alive and taking down Lucien that she'd pushed aside the reality of her father being gone. "Can I go?" she asked Morrison. The detective had been standing by the door, giving them space. Now she stepped forward. "It's risky. Lucien's people will expect you to show up. It would be the perfect opportunity to make a move." "I don't care. He was my father. I need to be there." Morrison considered this. Heavy security, armed guards, no lingering. You stay for the service and leave immediately after. "Fine. And you don't tell anyone you're coming, not even family. The fewer people who know, the better." Serena nodded, looked at Alina. "Will you be there?" "Of course." Alina grabbed her hand. "I'll sit with you. Whatever you need." They spent the next hour catching up. Alina filled her in on what had been happening in the outside world. The media frenzy, the speculation about Lucien's trial, the public reaction to the corruption scandal. Serena told her about Matteo, about the pier, about watching her father die. When Morrison finally said it was time for Alina to leave, they hugged again. Longer this time. "I might not see you after the trial," Serena said quietly. "Witness protection means disappearing completely." "I know," Alina's voice was thick, "but you'll be safe. That's what matters." "I'll miss you. I'll miss you too." Alina pulled back, wiping her eyes. "But you're going to be okay. You're the strongest person I know. You'll build a new life, and it'll be good. Better than anything you had here." Serena wanted to believe that. Alina left. The apartment felt emptier without her. Morrison ordered food that Serena barely touched. They went over testimony prep for an hour before Morrison finally said she needed sleep and disappeared into one of the bedrooms. Serena sat alone in the living room, staring at nothing. Tomorrow she'd bury her father. 3 days after that, she'd watch Lucien be arraigned on charges that would put him away forever. 6 months from now, she'd testify at his trial. And then she'd disappear into a new identity and spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival, which maybe was the same thing. She pulled out her phone, not the burner, but her original phone that Morrison had returned after checking it for tracking software. Scrolled through old photos. Her and her father at a charity gala 2 years ago. Her and Lucien on a yacht in the Mediterranean, both smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. She deleted the photos of Lucien, every single one. Watched them disappear and felt nothing. The photos of her father she kept. Her phone buzzed. Email notification. She almost ignored it. Then saw the sender name, Lucien Moretti. Her hand tightened on the phone. He shouldn't have email access from holding, but of course he'd found a way. Men like Lucien always found a way. She opened it. The email was short, 2 sentences. "You think you know what I am? You have no idea." Attached was a file, video footage, time-stamped from 3 years ago. Serena's finger hovered over the attachment. Every instinct screamed not to open it, that whatever was in that file would hurt, would change something fundamental. She opened it anyway. The video showed a warehouse, nighttime. Security camera footage, black and white, grainy. 2 figures entering the frame. One was Lucien, younger but unmistakable. The other was a man Serena didn't recognize. They were arguing about something. The audio was too poor to make out words. Then Lucien pulled a gun and shot the man in the head. The man dropped. Lucien stood over the body for a moment, then made a phone call. 2 minutes later, 3 other men entered the frame and started dragging the body away. The video ended. Serena stared at the screen. Her father had been investigating that murder 3 years ago. Had told her about it over dinner one night. A business partner who'd disappeared, presumed dead, but no body had ever been found. This was that murder. And Lucien had just sent her video evidence of himself committing it. Why? She read the email again. "You think you know what I am. You have no idea." Her phone buzzed again. Another email from Lucien. "That murder is one of 17 I've committed personally. The others are documented in files your father kept in his private office. 3rd drawer down, behind the false bottom. He knew. About all of it. And he never said a word because I was paying him to stay silent." Serena felt the room spin. No. That wasn't possible. Her father had been investigating Lucien, not protecting him. Her phone buzzed a 3rd time. The offshore account with your family's name on it? The one frozen by federal investigators? Check the transaction history. You'll see transfers from my companies going back 5 years. Payments for his cooperation, his silence, his willingness to look the other way while I operated. Serena's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. This was a lie. Had to be. Lucien was trying to poison her memory of her father, trying to make her doubt everything. But a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that it made sense. Her father's reluctance to let her get close to Lucien at first, his sudden acceptance of the relationship, the way he'd always had money even when his business should have been struggling. She called Morrison. The detective answered on the third ring, voice groggy. What's wrong? I need you to check something. My father's office. Third drawer in his desk. Lucien says there are files. What kind of files? Evidence that my father was being paid to protect him, that he knew about murders and stayed silent. Serena's voice cracked. Tell me it's not true. Silence on the other end, long enough that Serena knew the answer before Morrison spoke. We found those files 3 days ago, Morrison said quietly. During the investigation of your father's assets. I didn't tell you because you'd just watched him die and I thought, it's true. Serena felt something inside her shatter. My father was working with Lucien, not working with, being extorted by. The payments started after Lucien threatened your family. Your father was trying to protect you. By helping a murderer? By making an impossible choice. Morrison's voice was gentle. Lucien gave him 2 options. Cooperate or watch everyone he loved die. Your father chose to keep you safe. Serena closed her eyes, felt tears finally spilling down her cheeks. He lied to me. He protected you. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Morrison paused. Your father was a good man in an impossible situation. He did what he thought he had to do, and he died trying to help you escape it. Serena thought about her father standing between her and Lucien on the pier, taking a bullet meant for her without hesitation. Maybe Morrison was right. Maybe he'd been trying to protect her all along, even when it meant compromising himself. Or maybe everyone was just broken in their own way, making choices that seemed right at the time and living with the consequences after. The funeral's still tomorrow? She asked. Yes. I want to go. I know, we'll keep you safe. Serena hung up, sat alone in the dark apartment, thinking about her father, about Lucien, about how everyone she'd trusted had secrets that poisoned everything. She didn't sleep that night. Fog. The funeral was held at a cemetery on the outskirts of the city. Small gathering like Alina had promised. 20 people maybe. Family members Serena barely knew. Business associates keeping a respectful distance. Alina standing beside her, hand gripping Serena's so tight it hurt. Morrison and 6 armed guards positioned around the perimeter, watching the tree line, scanning faces, ready for trouble. The service was brief. A few words about her father's business accomplishments, his charitable contributions, his dedication to family, nothing about the choices he'd made, the compromises, the money he'd taken from a murderer to keep his daughter safe. Serena stood at the graveside and watched them lower the casket into the ground. Felt nothing. Or maybe felt too much, and her mind had just shut down to protect her. When it was over, people approached offering condolences she didn't hear. Alina fielded them, creating a buffer between Serena and everyone else. Finally, they were alone. Just Serena and Alina standing beside the fresh grave while Morrison's team maintained their perimeter. He loved you, Alina said quietly. Whatever else was true, that was real. I know. Serena's voice sounded distant. But love doesn't erase lies. No, but maybe it explains them. Serena looked at her friend. Did you know? About the payments? Alina hesitated, then nodded. Your father told me 2 years ago, swore me to secrecy. He was terrified Lucien would hurt you if you found out. You should have told me. Maybe, but I promised him I wouldn't. Alina's eyes were wet. He was trying to protect you the only way he knew how. By being Lucien's accomplice. By being your father first. Alina squeezed her hand. He made mistakes. Big ones. But he died trying to fix them. Trying to save you. That has to count for something. Serena wanted to argue. wanted to rage about betrayal and lies and how nothing would ever feel clean again. Instead, she said, "I forgive him." The words surprised her, but once they were out, they felt true. Her father had been flawed, had made terrible choices, had compromised himself trying to protect her. But in the end, he'd stood between her and a bullet without hesitation. That was love, broken and imperfect and tragic, but real. Morrison approached carefully. "We should go. The longer we stay, the more exposed you are." Serena nodded, looked at the grave one last time. "Goodbye, Dad." They walked back to the cars. Serena climbed into the back seat with Alina beside her. Morrison took the front. 3 other vehicles followed as they pulled away from the cemetery. "Where to now?" Alina asked. "Safe house," Morrison said. "We prep for the arraignment. Make sure Serena's ready to face Lucien in court." "When do the trials start?" "Hawkins goes first, 3 months, then Chen and the others. Lucien's trial will be last, probably 6 months out." "And then?" Morrison glanced back at Serena in the rearview mirror. "Then she disappears." Alina's hand tightened on Serena's. Neither of them spoke. They drove through the city in silence. Past buildings Serena had known her whole life, streets she'd walked, places that held memories of who she used to be. All of it would be gone soon, replaced with a new city, new name, new history, new life. The car pulled up to the safe house. Morrison's team did a security sweep before allowing them inside. Alina stayed for another hour. They didn't talk about anything important, just sat together like they used to, finding comfort in the familiar. When she finally left, Serena felt something settle inside her. The worst was over. Lucien was in custody, her father was buried, the corruption network was being dismantled. All that remained was testifying, watching the trials, making sure everyone who'd helped Lucien faced consequences, and then she'd be free. Not the freedom she'd imagined when this started. Not vindication or justice or any of the things she'd thought she wanted. Just survival. The simple act of continuing to breathe when everyone expected her to break. Maybe that was enough. The trials took 8 months. Hawkins went down first. Convicted on 14 counts of corruption. Sentenced to 30 years. Chen followed. 20 years for obstruction of justice and working with organized crime. The others fell like dominoes. Judges, prosecutors, federal agents, all of them caught by the evidence Mateo had spent 5 years collecting and Serena had sent to the world. Lucien's trial started on a cold morning in November. Serena sat in the witness box for 3 days, answering questions, listening to recordings of Lucien discussing murders and bribes and everything he'd done, watching the jury's expressions shift from skeptical to horrified as the evidence mounted. Lucien's lawyers tried everything, painted her as a scorned lover seeking revenge, suggested she'd fabricated evidence, claimed the recordings were taken out of context. None of it worked. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, came back with guilty verdicts on every charge: murder, racketeering, corruption, witness tampering. The judge sentenced Lucien Moretti to life in prison without possibility of parole. Serena watched from the gallery as guards led him away. He looked back once, met her eyes. She didn't look away. He disappeared through a door and was gone. Morrison found her outside the courthouse afterward. "How do you feel?" "Like I can finally breathe," Serena said. "Good." Morrison handed her an envelope. "Everything you need for your new life. Identity documents, bank account information, address in Seattle where you'll be relocated. My contact information if you need anything." Serena took the envelope. It felt heavy. "Thank you," she said. "For everything. For believing me when no one else did." "You didn't need me to believe you. You had all the evidence." Morrison smiled slightly. "But you're welcome anyway." They shook hands. Professional. Final. Serena walked away from the courthouse. Away from the life she'd known. Away from Serena Vale and everything that name represented. 3 days later, she boarded a plane to Seattle under the name Sarah Chen. Started over in a city where no one knew her history. Got a job at a bookstore. Rented a small apartment overlooking Puget Sound. Learned to exist without looking over her shoulder every 5 minutes. It took 2 years before she stopped flinching at sudden noises. 3 years before she could sleep through the night without nightmares. 5 years before she let herself get close to someone new. The woman she became wasn't the woman she'd been. That version of Serena had died on a pier watching her father bleed out, had been buried under lies and betrayal and impossible choices. The new version was harder, colder, less willing to trust, but also stronger, more certain of herself, unwilling to compromise who she was for anyone. She kept one photo from her old life, her and her father at that charity gala, both smiling, back when things were simpler. She looked at it sometimes, remembered who she'd been, who he'd been, all the ways they'd both tried and failed and tried again, and she forgave them both, for being human, for making mistakes, for doing the best they could with impossible situations. 10 years after the trial, Serena, Sarah now, truly Sarah, received a letter. No return address? Postmarked from a federal prison. She almost threw it away without opening it. Curiosity won. Inside was a single piece of paper. Lucien's handwriting. You were right. I did lose. Everything I built is gone. Everyone who worked for me is in prison or dead. My empire exists only in history now. But you lost too. You're alive, but you're hiding. Living under a fake name in a city that isn't yours. You gave up everything you knew to escape me. So maybe we both lost. Or maybe we both won in the ways that mattered. I hope Seattle treats you well. I hope you find something resembling peace. I never will. Sarah read the letter 3 times, then burned it, watched the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash. Let the smoke carry away the last connection to Lucien Moretti. She stood on her apartment balcony overlooking the sound, watched ferries cross the water, listened to seagulls and distant traffic and all the sounds of a city that was hers now. Lucien was wrong about one thing. She hadn't lost. She'd survived, and survival meant getting to choose what came next, getting to build a life on her own terms instead of someone else's. That was victory. Not perfect, not easy, not anything like she'd imagined when this started, but real, and hers. Sarah went back inside, made coffee, started her day like she did every day now, with the future stretching ahead of her, uncertain and terrifying and full of possibility, and behind her, finally, irrevocably, the past where it belonged. Finished, done, buried. She'd destroyed a king, brought down an empire, survived when everyone expected her to break, and then she'd done the hardest thing of all. She'd moved on. The end. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. The characters, events, corporations, and situations depicted are entirely imaginary. Any resemblance to actual persons, organizations, or events is purely coincidental. This narrative explores themes of power, betrayal, survival, and transformation through a dramatic lens meant for audio storytelling.